Welcome to Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special. We will be with you for the next several hours as the Browns decide who to add to the roster. Along with Lance Reisland, I'm Dave Bacon. And Lance, some talk that the Browns may be trading back from 2 to 5 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still talks going on.
Well, regardless, I think the Browns need to figure out how they're going to influx talent on this roster, right? And I think that starts with the offensive side of the ball. They have to find a way to score points. That's been kind of their Achilles heel the last couple of years. So whatever they do, they got to find some guys who can get some easy yards and score some easy points.
Still nothing decided relative to that potential trade back from 2 to 5 with Jacksonville, but we are told the Browns will get on the clock before they make the decision whether to presumably draft Travis Hunter or trade back to 5 and see what happens there.
Well, I think Travis Hunter, for me, would be a perfect fit, right? It kind of fits what they need offensively. He can help them out on defense as well in man coverage. He's a touch guy. He's probably the #1 touch guy in the draft in terms of getting easy yards after he catches the football.
So we will be with you again from tonight through the conclusion of the first round, then back here tomorrow starting at 7 o'clock for rounds 2 and 3. If you want to get involved, we will have the ability to take live phone calls. 330-963-7763 is the number to reach us. 330-963-7763 to get your reaction, what you want the Browns to do. We do have some voicemails from our show. The voicemail of Truth and Reason. Let's head there and see what some of the fans are thinking relative to this draft.
Hi, Dave. Mike from Wellston. Draft pundits have been calling Cam Ward to Tennessee, seems like forever. But what if they throw a curveball and take Travis Hunter? Their GM did comment at the beginning of line season that they couldn't pass on a generational talent, and Hunter is the only one that comes close to fitting that description. Cam Ward would be a great consolation prize for the Browns. Just curious what you think the odds are that this might happen. Thanks.
Well, Lance, again, I don't think maybe 1%. I think the Titans are locked into taking Cam Ward. If they did take Travis Hunter, I think the Browns would probably flip and take Cam Ward.
Well, it's interesting because Cam Ward, for what the Browns want to do, he's not a tremendous scheme fit, and the Browns have struggled with guys. If you look at Deshaun Watson in terms of those mobile guys who can improvise, that's what Cam Ward does best. So it'd be interesting now. His ceiling is really, really high, but in terms of what fits the Browns, it'd be Shedeur Sanders. So it's interesting if that was to happen.
Yeah, and again, I think it's incredibly unlikely. You know, they said that they came to a consensus a couple days ago. And it was presumed that consensus would be Cam Ward, and it's been trending that way since they went to the workout for Cam Ward at Miami, Florida.
Well, you know, if you're in the top of that draft and Browns haven't been there in a while, you got to take obviously guys who are playmakers. You got to take the best players. That's why I think Travis Hunter is a great pick. If they go with Cam Ward at 1, Travis Hunter makes a ton of sense because he's an impact guy right now.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with you. Again, the number if you want to get involved, 330-963-7763, 330-963-7763. All right, so Browns will presumably either pick 2 or trade out of 2. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Haven't called in a while. Howard from Marin County. Giving you some thoughts before the draft. Number 1, I have no faith in Andrew Berry. I believe he's going to screw up the draft. Number 2, Travis Hunter is great, but he's in the Big 12. It's not the SEC or the Big 10. He's 183 pounds. I predict he will get hurt. I don't see him playing 2 ways without getting hurt. I would definitely take Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter and Miles would be an incredible duo. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do in running back, but I would bet that they will not have a good draft, that years from now they'll look back and say that they did not do a good job. All right, thanks. I know I'm kind of a downer, but experience, is a good teacher. Thank you.
Welcome to NFL Draft Day in Cleveland, huh? Again, Lance, I understand some of the frustration. It's hard to. Andrew Berry hasn't drafted a lot of skill guys. That's when you look at the guys that he's drafted, and we'll take a look at some of those in a minute. But it's been a lot of linemen, and there have been some misses that kind of stand out that he gets beat up for, and rightly so. but I think he gets beat up a little bit, perhaps more than he should.
Well, yeah, especially when you think about like interior linemen, those aren't splashy, those aren't sexy picks. So a lot of people don't understand that's kind of where the foundation, and they really rely on those. If you look at Philadelphia this year, right, really good offensive line, really good defensive line. So Andrew Berry does a really good job, but they need skill guys. Regardless of how good they block, regardless of what they do defensively, they have to put more than 15 points on the board, and they have to go out and get these guys in early rounds that can make plays for them.
Yeah, and you know, to your point, that defense last year didn't play up to expectations, but the offense was so bad it kept putting them in holes. And I know people are going to say that Browns fans don't want to hear that. There's some truth to that line of thinking.
Oh, absolutely. So complementary football is just that, right? So when your offense is really struggling, your defense tends to press, right? So now they're trying to create turnovers. They're doing more than their job. They're trying to make plays. They're trying to create short fields for the offense, and that kind of puts stress not only on the defense but on special teams, your ability to make plays on offense. And when you don't have playmakers, you got to be perfect for 10 to 15 plays, and that's just really hard to do at any level.
Yeah, without question. So I've kind of alluded to this. Andrew Berry. Let's take a look at his first-round picks. And I didn't have him for 3 years because of the Deshaun Watson trade. So that's on him. But this was 2021. This was his first pick. He took Jedrick Wills 10 overall. And this is the one he gets absolutely beat up for, and with good reason. Mekhi Becton was okay. Tristan Wirfs has been an all-pro. And then later in that first round, 7 picks later, all-pro wide receiver. And then after that, it was Justin Jefferson. In 2021, this one wasn't bad. Greg Newsome, when they drafted him, Rashad Bateman was taken after him. Greg Stokes, Odafe Awe did have 10 sacks last year, but before that, his production wasn't great. Tyson Campbell at the top of the second round. Greg Newsome at that pick was actually a pretty good pick. But Jedrick Wills was a horrifically bad pick.
Well, when he came out of Alabama, going down and watching him play, he has all the tools. And it's very, very frustrating when you watch him practice at times because the body language he has. But then you see him do something in practice, you're like, oh, that's why they went and drafted him at number 10. When you look at Wirfs, I loved Wirfs coming out of Iowa. But Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, that hurts because those guys are generational type talents. Justin Jefferson was incredibly talented at LSU. That would have been a big pick for the Browns. And obviously, when it doesn't work out, it even looks worse, right? So hopefully Jed is going to – it's all about body language and want to with Jed. He's got the physical tools. He just hasn't done it consistently. Yeah,
and I think that's what makes it even more frustrating is the talent was there, and he just didn't develop.
Well, he's had, like I said, the injuries, but the want to has got to be there. When you go to practice, he has a tendency to just have bad body language. And my dad always said body language screams, it doesn't whisper, right? And when you look at him, he's frustrating. So to the casual fan, he's very frustrating because he's making a lot of money. He's got all the tools. So if he decides that he wants to do it, he has all the ability in the world.
Yeah. Relative to the Greg Newsome pick, do you agree that when I look at that, those were the guys that are on the board around him, and you go further in the second round of that draft, and there's nobody that you're like, man, they missed on that.
Well, one thing you could say, they've done a really good job with their DBs, right? So their DBs, in terms of what they like, how they approach with the length of the arms and how they break on the ball and their short area burst and all the things that you measure as a coach, they've done a really good job of drafting those guys. And Newsome was a guy who kind of fits the Schwartz scheme very well, too. He's aggressive. He's nasty. So, yeah, I think that was a very good pick when you look at where it was, especially coming, like you say, he had a great year last year. But up to that point, you have to say that was a really good pick.
And, the flip side of it is Greg Newsome had a pretty good year and then wasn't happy that he was moved inside and then hasn't played really as well the last couple of years. So you haven't seen the development that you want to see as well from a guy that played pretty well his first couple of years in the league.
Well, I was kind of shocked that he didn't like moving inside the slot because he gets to use his aggressive in there. When you play in that slot, first of all, you get to cover a bunch of different guys, tight ends, backs out, slot receivers, but you also get involved in the run game, right? And he's a very aggressive guy in terms of tackling. He wants to get his nose in there. So I was shocked he didn't want to move in there. He's done a really good job in there. He's done a good job when he's been outside as well. He's got a role to play, and sometimes he seems like he's frustrated with it, and I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, unless it's, he's coming up. They picked up his fifth-year option. Slot corners don't make the money that outside corners make. It could be as simple as he's looking at that as a guy that's a professional.
And that's, and it would never take money out of people's pockets, right? So that's very, very true because those inside slot receivers. But in terms of what the Browns are doing, he plays outside enough.
Right.
And what the Browns like to do defensively, Schwartz is a matchup guy. So there might be a matchup where they like him on the outside. Then they can move Emerson with his length and his body type, move him inside too because he's a big physical guy as well. So I think, Emerson, like the rest of those guys in defense, they have to be flexible in what they're doing, especially with Schwartz because Schwartz is going to find a matchup for them that will be successful.
Yeah, and so relative to Andrew Berry, he's got to get this draft right. He hasn't had a first-round pick in 3 years since Greg Newsome because of the Deshaun Watson trade. He made that trade. There's the ability to improve this roster. It's 5 in the top 104, and there may be more if they trade back a few spots.
Well, yeah, so you love them to stay at 2 because you can get that impact guy right now. And then where they need help, running back, tight end, defensive line, it's a really deep draft. They can get really quality players day 2 and even into day 3, late into day 3 if you're thinking tight end and running back. So there's an opportunity for them to improve right now. I think they would taking that second pick is huge though because that's where those elite skill guys come is those first 5 to 10 picks.
Yeah, I agree with you. Part of me doesn't want them to trade out, and all of me wants to make sure they get skill guys that can threaten the team with ball. We have our first phone call of the night. Frank from Cleveland. What's on your mind tonight, Frank? Good to hear from you.
Well, with the draft, I want to go with.
What's on your mind tonight, Frank? Good to hear from you.
Hey, Dave. Frank from Cleveland, the regular. I'm still leaning towards Abdul Carter. And then at the top of second, if we don't trade back into the first, I'd like to either get the running back from Ohio State, Henderson, or get us a quarterback, Jalen Milroe. That kid's got some talent. All right, thank you for taking my call, and I'll be in touch throughout the night.
Sounds good. Appreciate the call, Frank. I understand the Abdul Carter. You and I have talked a little bit about him. Doesn't have a lot of ability to put on weight with the frame. Has the bad foot, beat up shoulder in the Big Ten. So concerned about him getting beaten up. And Cam Ward has been taken number 1 overall. That is now official. But relative to Abdul Carter, I'm not opposed to it. Pairing him opposite of Myles Garrett intrigues me. I'm concerned about him taking the pounding of 17 games as a D lineman.
Well, a couple things concern you about Abdul Carter. First of all, his injury past. What concerned me was when I saw him work out. His workout was outstanding, but there's not an ounce of fat on that guy. So in terms of, he's a muscle hamster, right? So he's 251 pounds, and right now he's so talented. You're going to have to do things like you do with Micah Parsons. You're going to have to stand him up. You're going to have to bring him off the edge because if he plays at a 5 technique again, they're going to run right at him. At 251 pounds, that's your best bet to tire him out is just get those big bodies consistently running right at him, and then they're going to chip him and do things. And when you're 251 pounds, like you said, 17 weeks, that's a long time to stay healthy.
Well, Ian Rappaport of NFL Network is reporting that the Browns are, in fact, trading back to 5 with the Jaguars. So we will wait to see what the details of that trade are. But Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Browns indeed have agreed to trade number 2 overall to the Jaguars and move back to 5. So I want a first-round pick next year.
Yeah.
I want 5. I definitely want the second-round pick, and I might want the third-round pick this year.
Well, for me, it's that guy that you want on your football team. He's out there, and he was out there at number 2. Obviously, he won't be there at number 5 in Travis Hunter because the Browns need a guy who, like we've talked about for a long time, they need a guy who can get them easy yards, and maybe they think they have a guy at 5 they can do that with, but passing on Travis Hunter is interesting to me because of his ceiling and what he could bring to the Browns and bring to the Browns week 1.
Yeah, and again, it was a guy that was a playmaker and threatened to the defense. So they are, in fact, trading back. So let's see what, in fact, the Browns get. And if you're looking at 5, there's the defensive tackle Mason Graham from Michigan, who some think is the cleanest, if you will, the highest level prospect that has very little variance. I like the idea of Ashton Genty. That's a big-time playmaker, elite running back. I know running backs kind of devalued a lot. I think it's still way too early for any type of quarterback. But again, I want a playmaker.
Well, yeah. So when I broke my stuff down, Mason Graham is the clean. That's a great way to. He's the cleanest. He's going to be a really good player in the NFL. Once again, that's not a very exciting pick, but I'll tell you what. He's number one on my board just because he's 320. He's a wrestler. He's tough. Ashton Genty, I worry about because he had 800-plus touches last year at Boise State. And when you watch him, for me, watching him against Penn State, he's a outstanding tailback. However, he runs violently. And those type of guys who run violently, they don't have a long shelf life in the NFL just because those guys are so big. So what he does best, I'm not sure carries over into a long, long career. I think he'll be successful, but how long will he be successful for with that style?
Yeah, again, that's fair. And you know what? You can say that about any running back coming into the NFL. It is not a position where if you're carrying the ball a couple hundred times in the NFL, your body's going to tell you that pretty much every Monday or every Friday on Thursday games.
Yeah, especially if you're in a power run scheme like the Browns seem like they're going to go back to, right? So he's a guy who would carry the load, especially with Nick Chubb. I'm not sure where he's going to be forward, being more of a third down back, I believe. I think they want to get him to his strength. So Genty would come in and be a guy who's going to carry the load. And like you said, that 15 to 25 carries, that's going to add up over the course of the season. The ability to stay healthy, is really, really tough for those backs. That's part of the reason they've probably been devalued a little bit, just because the uncertainty. And this draft is a draft you can get some really good backs on day 3.
The other thing would be an offensive tackle. Will Campbell, a lot of people think, is going to the Patriots, so he probably won't be there. Although it'll be interesting to see if somebody's going to slide. Offensive tackle will be another one. Again, I'm not as crazy about that. You went and signed an offensive tackle in free agency, so I get the idea of having that, the anchor for your offensive line that will be there for years. Again, you need playmakers.
Yeah, so Calvin Banks would be another guy out of Texas, another tackle, athletic guy. But I'm with you. There's got to be a sense of where's the playmaker. So going down to 5 is kind of an interesting spot because it makes sense to take Mason Graham because you can't miss on this guy at number 5 if that's where you're staying. And Mason Graham is, I would say, your closest thing to a sure thing to be successful. But you need playmakers. And Ashton Genty at this point would probably be the best playmaker that the Browns, especially with the Browns scheme, is now.
And again, the trade is official. So the Browns will get the 5th pick, and they will also get the 2nd-round pick, which is 36, 4th-round pick, and the 1st-round pick next year for 2nd pick, 4th-round pick, which is 104, and a 6th-round pick. So you add a 2nd-round pick, you do a pick swap in the 4th, and you get next year's 1st-round pick for moving back from 2 to 5. I don't hate that. I don't hate it. I think what it tells you is they didn't think Travis Hunter was a slam dunk as a wide receiver.
Well, and it tells you, the thing I've said about Travis Hunter is he's a physical guy, right? So at 185 pounds, which has been a lot of people's concern, that is a concern, especially if he's going to play defense. Because he's only 185 pounds, sticks his nose in there. We've seen that with Denzel Ward. You get hurt a lot. And he's not a guy who shies away from contact. So that is exactly right. Sanders tells you Hunter wasn't their guy. They have a plan. We'll see what that plan is moving forward. I still think Hunter would have been a great pick here just because of his ability. You don't have to do a lot right. In fact, he's one of the few guys that, as a former offense coordinator, that you could do a lot wrong. He's going to make you look good because of his physical ability.
So let's see how this plays out now with the Jaguars. The presumption would be that they're trading up to draft Travis Hunter. They also were presumably interested in Ashton Genty and wanted to make sure that. So they were going offense to try to help out Trevor Lawrence. We've been talking about playmakers, and Lance, this is why you and I have both beat the table and banged the drum that they need them. Here's the wide receivers that are currently on the roster for the Browns, and it is not a distinguished list, if you will. You got Jerry Jeudy, who, again, had a great season last year. First year that he's done well, really well. Then you got Cedric Tillman, who was okay and then missed a bunch of games with concussion. Mike Woods has been injured. Jamari Thrash couldn't get on the field. David Bell hasn't gotten it done. DeAndre Carter has had some success, but he's more of a return guy. That is not a receiving core that strikes fear into a defense's heart by any stretch of the imagination. It's that needs some help.
Well, I think obviously Jerry Jeudy had a big year last year, so he's your outside guy. Tillman's a big guy. Now, when I watched Tillman last year during camp, I thought he came into camp physically in great shape, had a really good camp, did some really good things during the season. However, once again, had the concussion, missed last 5 or 6 weeks. They have those outside guys. You and I have talked about, they need a guy in the slot that can do things against linebackers, against safeties, the RPOs, the 7 routes, just crossing routes, just a guy to touch the ball and get him in space and let him do some work. And that's what they have, the outside guys, guy like Luther Burden in the second round, guys and Buka, guys who can do things in the slot is where they need to go.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where do you go? Is it tackle? Is it Mason Graham? I'm really curious what the Browns do at 5.
Well, I think for me, if you're not going to go Genty, then you go sure thing. Or if you would assume it's a sure thing, there's never a sure thing. But then I think you got to go Campbell, you got to go Banks, or you got to go
Graham.
I got to go Graham. And like I said, Mason Graham, I had him above Hunter just in terms of, like you said, things that are clear and the things he can do at the NFL level. He's an outstanding talent. Him and Grant, the other DT from Michigan, are really good players this year.
Yeah, and the question. They used their top picks in the second round last year on Michael Hall Jr., another defensive tackle. So you're putting a lot of assets, and again, I get it, defensive line is important, but you've got to address the fact that he scored like 15 points a game.
Yeah, Malik Collins was a really underrated pickup by them too. So you're right. There has to be an influx, not just of maybe one receiver, but they need multiple tight ends now that they're going back to 12 and 13. There's some game-breaking tight ends out there that are not just big Ophi guys, but this generation of tight end, these guys can move. They need backs, they need receivers, they need touch guys. There's a lot of positions that they don't have depth. They maybe have a frontline guy, but they need some depth, and we'll say it over and over, they need guys that can take the ball and score. And that sounds kind of simple, but right now they have to do everything perfect on offense for 12 plays. That's not sustainable.
No, and we saw it. We saw that last year. So the Jaguars at 2 have, in fact, drafted Travis Hunter. So Cam Ward goes 1. Travis Hunter goes 2 to the Jaguars after the Browns trade back to 5. And in some form or fashion, you expect Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, and Mason Graham were maybe even Ashton Genty. Those are kind of three of those 4 are likely the next picks.
Yeah, and once again, those are, most of those guys, but besides Abdul Carter could be a guy who's a generational guy, right? Because he's a guy who has those physical skills. You worry about him physically hanging in there, but he can rush the passer now, and he's elite in space and things like that. Moving back for me tells me they're going safe, which is not going to make very many people happy here in Cleveland. But that tells me it's a tackle, or it's an offensive tackle or defensive tackle that they feel very, very high on.
Well, here's the other thing that they picked up another second-round pick. So presumably, in the second round, you're going to take at 33 if you don't trade back into the first. You're going to take whichever of the quarterbacks you like, who's there, Shador, Milrow. That other second-round pick could become a running back. Could be Travion Henderson. Could be Quinshon Junkins. Could be Caleb Johnson from Iowa. So that second-round pick is likely to become one of the skill guys that you really covet and need. It could be Higgins from Iowa State.
Yep. So for me, the thing that the Browns in the position they are, if they're not high on any of these quarterbacks, you went out and got Joe Flacco, you went out and got Pickett, then skip it. And that sounds kind of, unless they feel we can take Milrow and we can make this guy what we need him to be. Now, if you feel that way about a quarterback, you go get him and you do it. But if they're not certain, there's too many holes on the roster, right? So you can't waste it. You can't just take a pick because you think this guy can't help you. He's got to be a guy that you're saying Milrow is there. There's a high ceiling with Milrow, and I can see the attraction to Milrow. However, that's going to be a developmental guy, and if it's too developmental, you're not making the picks the next year because you're no longer in charge of making the picks, right? And that's kind of the NFL. The more I learn about it, the more it's a brutal business, right? You got to win right now. So if that's the case, there's too many skill guys, there's too many tight ends, there's too many backs. And for me, guys like Tyler Shuck and Will Howard, they'll be available later. And there'll be some free agent guys that'll be very good as well.
Yeah, the Milroe is intriguing, and he's intriguing because, and people are probably getting sick of me saying this, Tommy Rees knows more about him than anybody because he was his offensive coordinator when Milroe played for Nick Saban, and he played probably cleaner and better with Tommy Rees as his offensive coordinator than he did last year.
Well, the thing that I like about Milroe is watching him through the offseason process. So he goes to the Senior Bowl and he's not very good. And the reason he's not very good because he was working on his footwork, right? Underneath center, throwing off play action. So he had like a little bit of a learning curve there. And you can see the improvement he made because of his athletic ability when he got to the Senior Bowl, when he got to the combine. So that's impressive to me that he went from the Senior Bowl not very good to his pro day to the combine and then got much better. So, and the talent, obviously he ran a 4.3, so the talent is there for sure.
And again, you're betting on upside, and that's what you do. It's not the player that you're drafting now; it's the player you can make him become in a year or two. So, but to your point, if you draft too many of those guys, there's gonna be somebody else that comes in to do the developmental part of that. Let's get back to 5. I'm guessing in talking to you, I'm guessing you think it's probably either Mason Graham or one of those offensive tackles.
Yeah, I would say now if there's a possibility, if they're going to say we're going to go with a guy who's going to help with day one, I would say it's Mason Graham out of Michigan. If he's there, you go with Mason Graham. He's 320 pounds, had a great year, but he's a 3-down defensive tackle, which are hard to find now, and he's 320 pounds, so he can anchor in there for Schwartz on first and second down. Then he can rush the passer at 320 pounds. He would be really intriguing next to Myles Garrett down in there. So, and I think that's the term I really like today is clean, right? He's an easy pick because of what he brings to the table. Those defensive line guys are pretty, I won't say they're easy to evaluate, but you know what you're going to get out of Mason Graham over the course of the next decade.
And, there is some thought, could they be looking at a quarterback? I would think if you weren't going to take the guy at 2, you probably wouldn't take him at 5. I don't think there's that big of a difference between taking a quarterback at 2 and 5.
Well, there has been I never felt the Browns were really into any of these quarterbacks, right? They never really came out and said they were very complimentary of what they did, but it didn't seem like they were their guys. Now, for me, Shedeur Sanders fits this mold of this structure within structure thing that has proven to be good for Stefanski. The Cam Ward guy has not, and that's the athletic ability. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but you're right. If they're not going to take him at 2, I don't see this at 5. I think they're going interior. They're going to go offense or defensive tackle, and they're going to get a really good player, but who's going to score behind him? That's where they're going to have to address as the draft goes along.
So the Giants have made their selection at number 3. They take Abdul Carter, the edge rusher from Penn State. As expected, that's not a surprise, and he looked impressive. He only played edge for 1 season, but he was pretty good.
Well, he's a guy, if you look at what Micah Parsons did, they've even done it with Myles Garrett when they put him over the center. So he's 251 pounds, he's 6'3", had just an outstanding season this year. And again, he's a twitchy, sudden guy off the edge at 251 pounds. His big thing will be, can he hold up? Because I think he'll make plays. But is he going to be available? And that would be the only thing at 251 pounds. Right now, if I'm an offensive coordinator, you got to run right at him because if he's not tired and he's not worn out, he's going to get to the quarterback. So obviously they have a plan for him. It won't be just a defensive end. He's one of these hybrid guys. He'll be at backer. He'll be standing up. He'll be coming from a bunch of different spots. Awesome talent. He's just got to stay healthy, and he's got to figure out how to maximize 250 pounds.
Yeah, and can he hold up? He played, and he played really well against Notre Dame in that playoff game. He played with basically one shoulder and was still probably the best player on the field. Here's another question. Do you think there's any chance the Browns stay wide receiver and go Ted McMillan at 5? I mean, he's in that 8 to 10 range.
Well, it would be shocking to me just because of his skill set. He's a big 6'5" kid who's an outside one who, if you're going to draft Cedric Tillman and you're going to say you're going to development, then you can stick with that, right? You went out and got Jerry Jeudy, who's also an outside guy, though Jeudy can move into the slot a little bit. Ted is an outside guy only. He's not going to do much slot work for you because of his length. Now, he's a vertical threat. He does really well slants, digs, comebacks, the things that you like as an outside receiver. But I think the Browns feel they're pretty good there. They need a interior guy that can make plays for them. And that, like you said, it's where can they be in 2 years, but what is their production? There's some guys out there who have great physical tools, but the production's not there. They need guys who produce, and that's what scores points, not your potential, it's production. But you got to have some potential too, right? So it's a very tough for those picking those skill guys.
Well, and the flip side of it is, that don't underestimate that number one that they just got from Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville does have Trevor Lawrence, and now they've got Travis Hunter to add with him. Their defense struggled last year. So, I mean, to expect them to go from picking 5th in the draft to being, in the mid-30s, that's going to be probably in the teens somewhere unless they have a phenomenal year.
Well, you know what, and there's a lot, I've said it, so I'll stick to my guns, but you do win with offensive defensive linemen. But that's kind of in conjunction with, like, you're getting these skill guys that match it, right? Now, Genty, going back to what you said, Genty wouldn't shock me as a pick here because Genty is a guy who fits this scheme, right? They're going back to Stefanski, right. 12 personnel, weak side zone, counter, power, pin and pull. Those are all things Genty does at a very high level. So I don't know. I see Genty as a possible pick here too. But if I'm the Browns right here, I'm going with Mason Graham just because you got out of the second pick. You went to 5. You want to make sure this pick is going to be really, really good. Mason Graham is the safest bet right now left in this early, part of the first round.
And if a guy with Mason Graham's skills, the reason he's not viewed as one of those Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter kind of guys is because he plays defensive tackle. That's just not a position where you look and say generational guy. Mm-hmm. Those are guys that eat space and do the dirty work and usually do the dirty work that add up to wins.
Well, if you look at him, he's a Dalvin Thompson type body type. He's a big guy, 320 pounds, but he can play on third down, right? He can rush the passer on third down. But he's a guy, the loss of Dalvin Thompson hasn't been talked about a lot, and I like Malik Collins and I like some things, but Dalvin Thompson was really boring and really good because he took on those guys.
Right.
The Browns, the linebackers are undersized, and they have to stay clean. JOK, if he's back, those guys can't have big bodies on them. So getting that big defensive tackle, whether it's Mason Graham or, again, you address it later in the draft, they have to get a big, heavy guy. Mason Graham gives you a little bit of both now because he can stay in the rush the passer.
It'll be interesting to see as the Patriots were awaiting their pick at 4, and then the Browns will be on the clock at 5 after trading back. They do pick up a second-round pick this year. They do a pick swap in the 4th round, and they pick up a first-round pick next year, 2026. So they have 2 first-round picks in 2026. Quarterbacks are expected to be better. I say expected because, I hear all the talk about Arch Manning next year. I would be shocked if he came out. What about the Manning family would tell you one of theirs is going to play 1 year of college football and come out? Nothing.
Well, and there's a learning curve he has, right? He has not played a snap. Now, he has all the physical tools you could ever want, but, there's Garrett Nussmeier, who's another guy. There's a bunch of guys next year, but you're right. You never know from year to year. You never know. The quarterback position is just a crapshoot for all of us, right? And because you don't know that it factor.
Who had Cam Ward, number 1 overall last year?
He was an incarnate Word 4 years ago, right? So, you're right. It's just, how are they going to progress when they get that first check and they have to move away from where they're comfortable and move away from family and friends? There's a lot that goes into that. And that quarterback position is the toughest position in sports, maybe. So, if they don't address it late in the round, which, obviously I don't know if they will, but we'll see what happens.
All right, so again, the Browns trade back to number 5 from number 2, Dan Orlovsky from ESPN, reacting to the trade.
A second tackle, or second or third tackle.
I love the move by Jacksonville. I think it's brilliant.
Man, that's a lot.
He's going to play all over the field for them. I don't think it's that much. They gave up next year's first-round pick. They think they're going to be a good team. Obviously, 5 this year. They gave up a second-rounder this year, and then a 4th-rounder for a legit superstar talent. I don't think it's that much. I'm surprised Cleveland got off. I want to see.
It's not a bad trade for Cleveland at all.
I want to see.
A lot of draft capital.
I want to see what the rest of the draft looks like for Cleveland because.
Yeah. So wait. So what does Cleveland do at 5 now? So if it goes Carter and then Grant, if it goes Carter, Campbell.
Campbell.
What is Cleveland?
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if New England gets out. I wouldn't be surprised at that. So if Cleveland sticks at 5, go back to 10, see if Chicago will come up.
Like nobody's talking about how shitty their offensive line is right now.
That's a tough player to pass on.
And again, yeah, I get it. But Browns are trying to get, now you got to, we were saying 4 starters. You want to come out of here with 5 starters now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dan Orlovsky is the best in the business in terms of like the reality of it. The reality is that Travis Hunter is a exceptional talent, and it's really hard to pass on those guys. Those guys don't come. They're not in every draft. Travis Hunter is not in every draft. He's a guy that I thought the Browns would. I kind of changed my tune. He's a guy that will be outstanding on offense. You can put him in man, make it real simple for him on defense. Let him use his athletic ability. Obviously, they have a plan. This draft now that the Browns have traded out of this second pick is really going to be interesting because are they going to be able to get that guy that gets him easy yards consistently? That's going to be, the only guy left that would do that would be Genty. A guy like Vrabel wouldn't shock me if he went after a guy like Genty. It's his kind of back.
Yeah, well, Mason Graham wouldn't surprise me, nor would Will Campbell.
Yep.
Guys on the line. Mike Vrabel, first-year head coach for the Patriots, and again. So the Browns trade from 2 to 5, and we are awaiting the pick for the New England Patriots, and they do, in fact, take Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU, which is what most people thought to do. Now, the question is it Ashton Genty? Is it Mason Graham?
Well, to think Ashton Genty is here. What do you think? What do you think you have in the backfield? What are your thoughts on Nick Chubb if you're the Browns organization? Obviously, regardless of his injuries.
We'll take a look at some of the plays for Will Campbell. They needed a left tackle, so this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I had him, Campbell and Banks. I had the top 2 guys like everybody else. What he does really well is he runs very well. He's got great feet. It's funny. It's paralysis from analysis. People said he had short arms. If you're a good football player, it doesn't matter sometimes. So once again, very physical, great feet, great leverage, great balance. Plays in a great system. Brian Kelly runs a very pro-style system. There's my number 1 quarterback for next year, Grant Nussmeier as well. So he was actually one of my top guys this year. But Campbell's an outstanding talent. Once again, safe. Not a lot of people in New England are probably super excited, but he's a guy that will anchor that line for a long, long time.
Yeah, and again, they had Drake May. They want to make sure that they don't get Drake May killed. So you got to improve the offensive line. They need some playmakers as well. Now the question is, Genty or Graham. I would hope it would be Genty, but if I had to guess, I'm probably guessing it would be Graham.
Well, I would say, I'll just put my coaching shoes on here. I would say as a coach, I would go Graham because of the safeness of it, right? But the Browns don't, I don't know. The Browns are at this point now with their talent level, especially in the backfield. This is a guy now that, you're thinking of in the Saquon, Henry kind of thing, and he is that talented. My only thing about Genty is that his greatest strength for me will be his greatest weakness in the NFL. He's a violent, collision-based, no one has better contact balance that I've watched in a number of years. That doesn't always last. That's very that wears the tread down very fast in the NFL. When you go down there and you see the size of these guys, I think Graham's the safer pick. Genty would be very exciting though because of what he's going to bring you right now. He's going to bring you talent right now.
Well, and here's why I keep referring to the need for Genty. If you look at the fullback or the running back and fullback room. It needs some work. I mean, I am not a huge Jerome Ford fan. I think he has his place. I think he's a change of pace, 3rd down back. But that's it. Those are your rostered running backs, and Troy Hairston is a fullback. Pierre Strong's more a special teams guy, which there's nothing wrong with. I think Jerome Ford is a change of pace guy. I know this is a deep draft, but again, I need impact players on the offensive side of the ball. I need skill players.
Well, and not only that, so there's 2 ways it impacts you, right? So first, it impacts you because, like you're saying, he's an outstanding generational type back. But then it also makes Ford better, right? Because now Ford is not carrying the load. Now he's a 3rd down guy. And Ford, I thought, really improved at not getting negative yards last year. He really improved as that focused back. So if they can get him back to a 3rd down back, now you've improved 2 backs in your backfield because of going out and getting Genty. And now Ford doesn't have to carry the load.
The other thing I would say is Ashton Genty would make whoever plays quarterback better because now you've got a guy that's going to get 4 yards on 1st down, in addition to having home run hitting potential. But we're awaiting the pick. Browns on the clock, so we will find out who they, in fact, do draft at 5 overall here momentarily. 330-963-7763 if you want to get involved. Would love to hear from you. I don't hate the second getting the first round pick next year. So you have a second first round pick, which in theory would allow you to move around some. I don't love the idea of not getting a playmaker, to be honest with you.
Well, I'll tell you what, it tells me that maybe they can go out and get a tight end, an athletic tight end, because now these tight ends in the Browns offense are almost different than any other offense in the NFL because they're going to do a bunch of different things. So Harold Fannin, Loveland, Mason Taylor, those are some impact tight ends in a tight end based offense with Stefanski going, getting the keys back. So that tells me that second round you can get a high level tight end in there as well.
So it is. We're hearing reports that it is in fact going to be Mason Graham. Pick has not been officially announced yet. We are hearing that it will be Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan, as the Browns pick at number 5, first overall. And here's some video of him, and you liked him a lot.
So yeah, Mason Graham is absolutely my number 1 guy on my board, and you'll see what he does really well. He's violent with his hands. I always love wrestlers who are defensive linemen. He's 320 pounds, so he can play on first and second down, anchor in there, keep the linebackers free. Then he can get in that B gap. He can also rush from the edge if you'd like to match up inside with Miles, and you can move him out. He's that athletic. So once again, so I had Mason Graham as number 1, Hunter is my number 2 on my board, and it's the simple fact that Mason Graham, though not sexy, if you're going to go this route, it's as good as it can get because now if they don't get playmakers, they're going to have to play great defense. They're going to have to do these things. Mason Graham is an outstanding. I know the Browns need talent skill-wise, but Mason Graham is as good as it gets as a defensive tackle. Big, fast, strong, violent hands, wrestler, mean. He will be a day 1 starter and very good in there.
Yeah, and again, comes from a program that's used to winning. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State fans hate him. I get that. But Michigan's a good program, especially on the trenches.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing, too. So he's seen it. So every day in practice, he's seeing NFL-type runs, the counters, the powers, the pin and pulls. He's been a part of that. Now, he's also going to bring, if the Browns need, you and I have talked about, the Browns need talent. They also need a little bit of an edge, right? They need to start hitting. They need to start practicing a little bit more, maybe becoming a little bit more violent during the week. And Mason Graham's a guy who's going to force that. He's going to challenge Batonio and Teller. This is a big, huge athlete who has a special skill set for somebody 320 pounds.
And again, you had him ranked as your number 1 guy on your draft board, and most people said he was, quote unquote, the cleanest, which meant not much variance. You know you're going to get it. Probably going to be multiple year all-pro kind of guy from that defensive tackle spot. Made the defensive line better. Jim Schwartz has to be smiling. He usually has tackles that can get upfield and make plays, and now he's got a pretty darn good one to kind of mold.
Well, I would say this, as an offense coordinator, sometimes you can chip a defensive end. Sometimes you can stay away from a corner. You can do things, but when you have that 3 technique, that's a really hard guy to game plan for. Especially when, think about Aaron Donald. Now, no one's Aaron Donald, but that type of where if you don't double him, he's going to mess up everything. That's what Mason Graham gives you. He is an alpha, and he's mean, and he will bring a lot to that defense in terms of what Schwartz likes in terms of attitude as well, besides the physical skills, which are through the roof.
And again, it helps Myles Garrett. Now you've got, you line him up to Myles Garrett. You're really going to double team Myles Garrett and leave Mason Graham singled?
Well, now you're hoping Hall progresses, right? So if what you got to say to yourself, we're going to have a new quarterback. We might not have the skill. So what do you got to do? You got to play complementary football. You got to shorten the field, shorten the game, get the offense the ball with 30 yards to go. Create some turnovers. They got to get a safety who may, if you're going this route, get a safety. Get Watts out of Notre Dame or Billy Bowman who can create some turnovers. Now you got to help the offense. Not only with some of the later picks, but also by having that complementary football from your defense and special teams.
So you look at Graham, and it's kind of interesting. You got Graham, you got Hall, you have Myles Garrett, you got Wright, you got Okunrankwo, assuming they don't trade him, Isaiah McGuire. You got a lot of... Jim Schwartz wants a dominant defensive line. He has the pieces there to be a dominant defensive line.
Well, and they also want to, he likes to rotate those guys in, right? So you're going to get, it's a very matchup-friendly defense, right? So he's going to find matchups on the defensive line with linebackers, with corners, with safeties, with everybody. He's going to find those guys that are going to allow him to get Myles Garrett where he wants to go. And make no mistake, Myles Garrett is as good as it gets. But the more guys you have with him, right, the more they can't double him, the more they can't only be Myles Garrett. And they're getting to that point now, defensive line-wise, that this is huge from in my perspective too, because Dalvin Tomlinson was a much bigger loss.
Right.
So this will help them not get moved vertically, especially on a first down.
Yeah, and again, Tomlinson, salary cap kind of move without question. So now you got a guy on a rookie contract, eating up that space. You've done a first-round pick this year, a second-round pick last year to improve that defensive tackle spot. The line is solid. Give me some skill position guys.
Well, so now you got to think. So Genty obviously will be off the board now. So now you're thinking Travion Henderson is a home run guy. Now they have to make a decision. Do they go with Travion? So the Ohio State backfield's perfect. Do they go with Travion Henderson, who's a home run guy, or do they go with Junkins, who's more going to get you to 2nd and 5? They have to decide what they want there. Luther Burden, Emeka Mbuka, Ferguson, the tight end. There's a boatload of tight ends that can really help, that are not just big Ophi tight ends. Those guys are no more. There's Luke Lachey you might get in the 7th round, who is a really good tight end out of Iowa. So they got to improve. For me, the ultimate guy they got to get here at 33 would be Luther Burden. He's a guy that would really help this offense and kind of fit what you and I were talking about. Hopefully Luther Burden's on their radar right now.
So Ashton Genty goes at 6 to the Las Vegas Raiders. So Ashton Genty is picked 6. The Browns choose Mason Graham. They acquire a first-round pick from the Jaguars next year after trading back from 2 to 5. 330-963-7763 if you want to get involved and give us your opinion on Mason Graham. We're going to take a quick time out here on the Draft Night Special of Sports4CLE. We'll be back after this timeout. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. The Sports4CLE NFL Draft Night Special Round 1, along with Lance Reisland. I'm Dave Bacon. Lance, the other thing, so playmakers definitely needed. It's going to be interesting to see reports pre-draft, before the trade back to 5, were that the Browns were not expected to trade back into the back half of this first round for any quarterback. So it remains to be seen. If you get down to Pittsburgh at 21 and Shedeur Sanders is there, and then he gets down 29 and it doesn't cost much, they at least have to think about it, I would think.
Well, yeah, and not only is he as good a quarterback, I had him over Cam Ward just because not only do I like his skill set, I like his pass, I like what he did at both the stops he had, I like his footwork under pressure. He took an absolute beating at Colorado, but he fits the scheme. And if you're talking about a guy who fits the scheme, now the argument is you pick the best players. You pick the best players when the best player is much better than the second guy. I never really thought Cam Ward, I felt those guys were 1 and 1A. So if they're 1 and 1A, take the guy that fits the scheme. Shedeur Sanders, you're right. If it gets late in the draft, that's something you need to think about, because you had thoughts of him making him the number 2 pick.
Right.
And he fits the scheme, and he is. I'm very impressed with his toughness, and I will say this forever: anticipation and accuracy seem to carry very well over into the NFL. Orlovsky is always, I steal that from him because it makes a lot of sense. You got to anticipate everything so fast. He does a great job of that.
And the other thing that they need a quarterback, and again, it depends on how they view him. Milroe's another one. Milroe they have more knowledge of just because Tommy Rees, that gives them a leg up on that. Again, I'm curious to see, do they take a quarterback? Now they have 2 second rounds. They still have 2/3 and a fourth. The fourth is now later than 104 after the pick swap with the Jaguars in the 4th round. Or is it one of the later guys? Is it a Will Howard? Is it a Kyle McCord? Is it? I know that would make some Browns fans happy if it's a Will Howard in the 3rd or 4th round.
Well, if you're going 3rd or 4th round, then I think you absolutely go with scheme fit, right? Will Howard, McCord, those guys fit the scheme. For me, even though Tommy Rees, Coach Milroe, he's not Kevin Stefanski's calling the plays, right? And I've said that to a lot of people. He will help with practice plans, but on Sunday, Stefanski has made it very clear that he's calling plays. And if he's calling plays, he likes to do what Milroe needs a lot of work on. Now, Milroe, I think, has an incredible potential, incredibly high ceiling, but he's going to take some time in this Kevin Stefanski offense to get to where he needs to. And I just think you have too many holes to take that at 33. I think you got to go skill guys, and then you can get a guy who fits your scheme, who is very close to those other guys. I don't think Will Howard is a guy, if he can drive the football to 15, 25 yards, he's shown me some things that he can do that carry over very well to the NFL. And
he does have he has probably more athleticism than most people give him credit for.
Well, he was a heck of an athlete. He ran the ball at Kansas State all the time. Now, they took that. He didn't do as much at Ohio State as he did at Kansas State, but he ran the ball, designed quarterback runs. He gave you a lot of that Josh Allen inside the red zone power run, that +1 run package that that the colleges run. So he fits a lot of what they like to do in the red zone. He fits what they do with play action. So does Kyle McCord as well.
We haven't really gotten. What do you think of the trade? They do accumulate a 1st-round pick next year. They get another 2nd-round pick this year. They pass on what we both think is going to be a pretty good football player, a really good football player. But they do get a good football player in Mason Graham.
Well, I would say this. I don't like passing on an elite skill guy like Travis Hunter. And I don't care what the draft, I try to stick to the film and how they would help a football team. And draft capital makes a lot of sense in terms of trying to get more picks. But when you have a guy like that, like Orlovsky said, that's a generational guy who's probably the best player. I mean, if you look at everybody had him 1 to 2 or 3 on their board. He's a guy that would have helped defensively in the nickel. He could have been an offensive starter in the slot. Now all of a sudden Judy and Tillman look a lot better because you got Hunter in the slot.
Right.
He's going to help the run game because they're going to have to spread out a little bit. So offensively they need to have a plan moving forward here in the next couple picks. I love Mason Graham. He was, like I said, he was my top guy, but Hunter is probably the guy who's going to make more splash plays than anybody in this draft, especially early on.
Does Mason Graham make the Browns defense substantially better?
Yeah, and here's why. Because now they have some capital now in terms if they wanted to trade or do something. Because Mason Graham's a three-down DT, so he can anchor in there on 1st down, those big double teams on power and counter and zone. But he's a guy who can get in that B gap, and he has electric feet for a guy 320 pounds. That's why he's a top 5 pick. So it'd be very interesting. But yeah, I think he helps them immediately. I think he starts at that big 3 technique. He's a bigger, faster Dalvin Thompson. That's what he is. Maybe not bigger, but he's a similar size.
Does he? So do you feel the defense is dramatically improved because of the addition of Mason Graham?
I do, and the reason why is because I think moving forward, if JOK is going to be healthy, you got to keep him clean, all right? So that tells me they think maybe JOK is going to be okay because they're going to get this defensive line in front of him. So the key is he's got to, 1st and 2nd down, he's got to keep those linebackers clean. Now you got rotational guys, right? So now you got Obo and these guys. He is now the anchor 3 techniques. Everybody else can do kind of miss and match and do what they need to do, but he's the guy who's going to be to the strength of the offense, taking on that guard and that tackle at 320 pounds and making it. Now, he might not be as explosive in the NFL, but he will be a really good NFL defensive lineman because he can take on two guys.
Fair enough. Let's welcome to the show Tim Beelick from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, so trade back, what do you think of the trade? First, let's start. What do you think of the trade?
Kind of shocking. I mean, honestly, I know it was kind of a haul that they got from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I do have to give credit to Jacksonville's new front office. I mean, going forward, giving up 536 and a first-round pick next year, along with that fourth-round swap to take Travis Hunter. I mean, I find it interesting on it, obviously, for the Browns. It seems like they're trying to dive into the strength of this draft, which is the depth of this draft. Now you have two of the first 4 or 5 picks, I believe, two of the first 4, in day number 2. You get that bonus first next year. If Jacksonville struggles next season, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't go back to being Trevor Lawrence from that season where they made the playoffs and won a playoff game, this suddenly becomes a big move for the Browns, but it feels like just trying to recoup some of that capital they lost with the Deshaun Watson trade. Still, I don't like the idea of passing on the superstar prospect of that Travis Hunter is.
What about Mason Graham? Do you like that? Does that make the defense better? I was just asking the same thing of Lance Reisland.
I got to shout out Lance. He called it about a week ago. I know he's a big Mason Graham guy, so he kind of talked me into the idea that Graham is pretty close to Abdul Carter as far as talent goes. I mean, best defensive tackle in a draft since Jalen Carter 2 years ago, and we've seen the impact Jalen Carter has had on the Eagles in such a short time. I mean, he's a true 3-down defensive tackle, dynamic in the run game. He's obviously Michigan's best defensive tackle. Best defensive player, when they won the national championship in 2023. That was even after a bunch of those defensive guys got drafted. That includes Will Johnson, who I think is very undervalued, probably because of injury history. Graham's a really electric player. The issue I have with the Browns would be the same issue I had taking Abdul Carter. You had the worst offense in football last season, and now Mason Graham becomes the 5th defensive player Andrew Berry has drafted in the first 2 rounds of a draft out of 6. I get that, they're still trying to build that defensive line, get help for Myles Garrett, and I'm not trying to make this as a slight to Mason Graham. I'm really not. I think he's an outstanding prospect, and I think he could fit right in well with Mike Hall Jr. But now, you're the Browns, you got to turn right around, and you got to load up this offense, especially now that you have 4 day 2 picks to work with.
Yeah, I'll ask you the same question. Does Mason Graham make the Browns' defense substantially better than it was, before that pick?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I mean, obviously, I think, like I said, he gives that disruptive element in the middle. He's a high-energy motor, so you have to imagine Jim Schwartz is absolutely going to love that. But, it's the same argument I made with Abdul Carter. You're strengthening something that's already pretty strong and something they've already invested a lot in. Andrew Berry, other than corner, has really invested a lot of draft capital into finding defensive tackles. I get trying to follow the Eagles' formula of having a really dominant defensive line, and I do think Mason Graham is a really talented player. But for me, it comes down to, can you score the football? And I feel like defense wasn't so much the issue last year. They couldn't score. And because they couldn't score, it put so much pressure on the defense. They have to be great. Maybe this is a Green Bay type of situation where they love to draft defense early and they come back in day 2 and load up on offense. So, I mean, you do have to give this a chance, I think, if you're a Browns fan and you're a little disappointed in this selection. I think you have to give it a chance to see how day 2 plays out. Maybe they go up later tonight and get Jalen Milroe. Maybe they take him at 33 and then just get skill, and offense in day number 2 and play from there. But, I mean, as far as the talent goes, defensive tackle is a more valuable position, I think, than running back, despite the fact that the defense is not the weakest part of the team. So I get where the Browns are coming from, I think, with this Mason Graham pick.
Do you expect the Browns to potentially trade back in to the back half of that first round for a quarterback, a Jackson Dart, a Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders if he's sliding?
I don't know if I expect it. It's hard to predict kind of what's going to happen at this stage of the draft because, it's still so early into it. I know we just saw Armand Membu, the offensive tackle from Missouri, go into the Jets at number 7. With that, now that you have that second round pick, and from the Jaguars. Now you have a little more flexibility to possibly make that move. If you say you trade 33 and 94 to go up to 19 or 20, you still have a 2 and a 3 tomorrow, in addition to a guy that you think is your quarterback in the future. And I still would do it just because I think you want to inject some potential life into your offense. Like I said, I feel like it would be a mistake if the Browns don't leave the 40s of this draft without a guy that people can consider to be an option at quarterback. I feel like that's a big thing that they got to be able to do in this draft. I know it's not a great quarterback class, but I would still really push and try to take a swing on a guy. Like I said, I just think Jalen Milrow's upside is so strong. It's at least worth considering very highly if I'm the Browns.
I would think it's got to be offense. I would think you still need a wide receiver. You still need a running back. You still need a tight end. I would think those are going to be 3 of the next 4 or 5 picks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's got to be. And I think when you look at where the draft is kind of fall, say if Shedeur Sanders is the only other quarterback off the board, then you could certainly go Jalen Milrow at 33, come right back at 36, and there'll be a bevy of receivers to pick from, especially if, say, Emeka Egbuka is still there from Ohio State. If you can leave the second round with Jalen Milrow and Emeka Egbuka, I think you will have done a tremendous job if you're the Browns. And then you can kind of go on to other areas, such as finding a running back, adding depth on the offensive line, those sorts of things. But again, you got to find pieces to improve this offense, and you got to find some young talent, especially, again, considering this is a draft where it may not be as top-heavy on receiver as in the years past, but there are still plenty of good players you can find in round number 2 to fill those holes at receiver.
Who are some names you like? Running back and receiver, second round. Now you got a couple of picks in the second round. So second and third, some of the guys that you think would fit the bill for playmakers, receiver and running back.
Well, I'm going to go with another one, Lance's guys. Luther Burden III, the explosive receiver from Missouri. I think he's a great yards after the catch guy. Certainly a guy who can fill that slot role. I know slot receivers aren't exact. I think I've said before, I think slot receivers are undervalued, and the Browns need a guy you could throw the ball to on a 2-yard pass and turn into 7, 8, or 9 yards. A guy that will get those easy yards. I know Lance has been big on that, and I really do buy in that as well. I also, like I said, like Emeka Egbuka. I think Trey Harris from Ole Miss really intrigues me as a receiver option. And then I look at running back. I mean, I'm still a big Caleb Johnson guy from Iowa, him or Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State. Maybe if you say trade down from 36 into the middle of the second round and you can get one of those guys, preferably Johnson, because I think he's got a little more value than Scatterbo, because I think with Johnson's vision and his ability to create chunk plays at a better explosive rate than Cam Scatterbo, as much as I love Scatterbo, I think Johnson is a better prospect right now. I think the Browns do need a power component of this running game to pair with Jerome Ford. And I think if you can get either one of those 2 running backs, maybe you get one of those receivers, like I said, with Burden or Egbuka, if either one are available. It does come down to, I think, what you want to do with quarterback. And I do, like I said, I think if you're in that top 40, you got to leave that area with a quarterback. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with that.
Tim, who do you think the Browns, what are some options at tight end for the Browns on day 2 and into day 3?
Well, one thing I've looked at before, and I've written about this, is tight ends who run the 40-yard dash in 4.76 seconds are guys that have typically, outperformed other guys. Typically, you want to have that speed at tight end because, I mean, quite honestly, that's a matchup nightmare position. And one guy I've singled out probably would be a late day 2 guy, Terrence Ferguson from Oregon, fastest 40 among those tight ends. I think it was about a 4.63. He's a guy who, when you get the ball in his hands, there's no wasted motion. He goes straight up the field, and he just goes and gets as much yard as he can. Not necessarily a great blocker, but I think if you're the Browns, you want to go 2 tight ends. I think you want another pass-catching option, and if you could pair David Njoku with another athletic tight end like a Terrence Ferguson, then Kevin Stefanski can really get creative in those 2 tight end sets, because then you have not 1 but 2 tight ends who would be difficult to match up with in those types of situations. Elijah Arroyo from Miami is another interesting guy. Mason Taylor from LSU, I believe, both fall under that sub 4.76 threshold for 40 speed. Both of those guys, I think, would probably go earlier than Terrence Ferguson. But I think with the depth in this tight end class, that should be another area they look at on day number 2.
So the Panthers have taken Tet McMillan, wide receiver, with the 8th pick in the draft. Tim, I know you're still you were a Shador guy, kind of like Lance. If Shador and Milroe are both there when the Browns are taken, which way do you go?
That is a very tough call because I think you kind of have to look at the idea of upside versus the guy who you feel like is not going to fail. And when I say not going to fail, I feel like there's no scenario where Shador Sanders isn't at least in the NFL for 10 to 12 years. May not be as a superstar type of guy, might not be as anything more than a Jacoby Brissett, but you know he's going to be in the NFL for a long time. Versus Jalen Milroe, who basically I think he's either going to be can either be a top 10 quarterback or he's going to be a bust. I don't think there's really any middle ground between them. And I think it comes down to your comfort in your coaching staff and whether you feel like you can manifest the best out of Jalen Milroe. And I will say, I took a lot of time, extra time watching Jalen Milroe. I watched every play he had in the SEC title game against Georgia in 2023. The mistakes he made in that game, I think, are some of the same things that, show up on a lot of film. It's like the mistakes he makes are mostly mechanical issues with his footwork and getting his base in the right place and setting his feet into throw. Because when he sets his feet and when he throws with proper fundamentals and mechanics, especially with his feet, it's really good. Plus the fact that he runs away from guys in the SEC. And I know the SEC isn't as great a conference as the Big Ten has been the last 2 seasons, with the Big Ten winning the last 2 national titles, but the SEC still has really good athletes. That Georgia defense in 2023 was awesome, and Jalen Milroe was able to make some plays with his feet and his arms. So I think I'm kind of leaning to Milroe just a little bit, just because I feel like that upside is such a tremendous tremendous part of his scouting report there.
Is there anything else on the defensive side of the ball that you want to see the Browns address? People have talked about an edge rusher. You've got Garrett, you've got McGuire, you've got Wright, you've got Okunrankwo. You can probably get developmental guys a little bit later. Is there an area of the defense that you think they still need to focus on in the second, third, fourth rounds, or can that wait?
I think I could probably wait maybe until the 4th round, but I think you can go. I think what I would look for is deep safety help. You want that. I think you need that center field safety to play opposite Grant Delpit and allow Delpit to do what he does best, which is play in the box defensively and really do his work in run support. If you can get a guy like an Andrew Makupa from Texas or a Billy Bowman Jr. from Oklahoma to really be that center field safety, I think that's another piece on this defense that's kind of missing. To have that guy who can play over the top, not let anything get behind him and really just be that last line of defense to basically help kind of make the lives of Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson Jr., and Greg Newsome II, all the rest of the corners on this team, make their lives easier knowing that they have help back there and a guy who's going to make sure nothing gets behind him.
Yeah, so that's interesting. The Saints have just taken Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive lineman from Texas. So some thought that might be a quarterback. Now they go offensive line. So, again, it's going to be interesting. The next point of inflection for a quarterback is 21 with the Steelers. So it'll be interesting to see.
No question about it. I'm kind of surprised. I will say right now, looking at the board, I'm kind of surprised the Panthers took Ted McMillan 8th overall. I've been mocking defense to them with Jalen Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. And the Panthers had the worst defense in football last season. To see them go offense, although I really like McMillan as a big 6'5" receiver, I thought I kind of had him mock 12th to the Cowboys there. So I'm kind of surprised to see him go 8th overall. But yeah, with the Steelers at 21, I had mocked defense to them because even though, yes, they need a quarterback, yes, we still don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, what if they're going to trade for Kirk Cousins. And they could still take Shador Sanders. I think that feels like a connection a lot of, people on Twitter are making. But the thing I thought of with this, and I think I hinted at this with you yesterday, Dave, is I look at the Steelers. They learned 3 years. They took a first-round quarterback 3 years ago in Kenny Pickett.
Yep.
Didn't work out. And with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt both getting older, and with a trade for DK Metcalf, I wonder if they just go defense and decide, hey, we're going to put all our eggs in the veteran quarterback basket. We're going to go all in while those two guys still have a bit of prime left in their careers, because Cam Hayward is getting up their age. I believe TJ Watt's now on the getting either at the wrong side of 30 or getting to the wrong side of 30. So their 2 superstars on defense are not getting any younger. Maybe they think their window is closing, and they decide, they're just going to load up on defense and hope that they can either get Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins and then just try and go all in one last time with this group.
I kind of think they may look at running back even, because Najee Harris left. Warren signed a 1-year deal with them, kind of an extension, exclusive rights deal, not much money. That's a team that likes to run the football almost as much as Kevin Stefanski, and right now they don't have a running back.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a bunch of ways they can go. I mean, I'm just thinking of, the Steelers feel like they kind of like to run things a little more throwbacky. I know they really are very good at finding receivers, but the last couple of years they've really prioritized the lines, especially the offensive line. I doubt they do that again. And I mocked Michigan's Kenneth Grant to them at 21. I think he's a great fit for the interior of their defensive line, but it's going to be interesting where they decide to go. I do agree they need offense. I mean, I think their collapse at the end of last season proved they don't have enough on that side of the football. Maybe getting that veteran quarterback will help them there. Getting DK Metcalf certainly will help them keep up with the Bengals and the Ravens in the division. But it's going to be interesting to see which direction they go, because you can go one of those two directions and it would make a ton of sense either way for the Steelers. It's just a question of, what Omar Khan and company feel like they want to do at 21.
So what are you watching most as this, we're at pick 10 now with the Bears still on the clock. What are you watching for relative to the Browns the rest of this first round?
I think obviously to kind of see if, any of these quarterbacks come off the board. It seems like the momentum the last, 12 hours or so has been the Giants really love Jackson Dart. And say if they trade up into the teens or whatever ahead of the Steelers to get Jackson Dart, and then the Steelers turn around at 21 and draft Shedeur Sanders, and all of a sudden does Andrew Berry panic if he really wants Jalen Milroe and decides to go up and get him, or if he just kind of decides to sit back at 33 and just kind of whatever happens in that situation. But the other thing I'm kind of watching for is these edge rushers come off the board. These offensive linemen are starting to come off, like you said, Membu coming off the board, Kelvin Banks Jr. coming off the board. Certainly, these linemen are going early. So I think if you're the Browns, you're kind of rooting, I would think, for some of these edge rushers to come off the board, because now you want some offensive guys to fall to. If you kind of hope maybe somehow Travion Henderson falls out of the first round. Maybe if he does, then all of a sudden you have a real decision to make it 33 or 36 if you really want to get your running back. Maybe one of these receivers fall. I think if you're the Browns, as much as they need an offensive tackle, I think you want to keep seeing those defensive linemen kind of fly out the board, and you want at least one of those two quarterbacks to be available, say like pick 28 or something like that, if they want to trade up, pay a meager sum, and get that fifth-year option.
Tim Beelick, we're going to listen now. Andrew Berry addressed the media out in Berea after the pick of Mason Graham. Let's listen in to Andrew Berry talking about Mason Graham and the trade from 2 to 5.
Do you and Jim Schwartz believe that Mason Graham is a better complement to Myles Garrett than Abdul Carter?
I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, look, we'd love to have both of them, Tony. Just to be candid, the reason we like Mason is because
thanks for having me.
he has the ability to be an excellent pass rusher from the interior, and that's really, really hard to find. It's a premium skill set now in the NFL. Those guys, they make a lot of money, and they very rarely become available. In terms of Abdul, whether the pass rush comes from the edge or the interior, preferably both, it doesn't matter to us, but we'll always take pass rushers.
Hey, Andrew, when you talked about the DNA fit, can you go a little bit more into that? What specific position will he play? And also, just how do you see him fit in when Mike Hall was also your first pick last year? Yeah. And so, it seems like he got a lot at one spot.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, Nate, when we say DNA fit, we want players what we call attack players. So guys who can use movement, quickness, power to really reestablish the line of scrimmage, get upfield and ultimately rush the passer. The D-line, they're the engine of our defense, and their job is really just to mess things up at the line of scrimmage. It's to attack and disrupt, and that's a perfect fit for both Mason's physical skill set as well as his competitive personality. In terms of positionally, in an ideal world, we're not really distinguishing our defensive tackles in our system. Like sometimes we'll play left and right. I know some teams will say, hey, nose tackle or 3-tech. We really just want very similar defensive tackles. We feel like the best way to get mismatches in the NFL is to have, interior pass rushing defensive linemen, because they're just a lot harder to protect against, slide to, than your edge guys. And so we're like, part of the reason we're so excited is to have Mike and Mason, two guys that we think will legitimately affect the quarterback. And if they get singled up because Miles is commanding those slides, they can really make offenses pay. And then the last thing I'd say is, we really want to be 6 to 8 deep across the defensive line, because we play our guys like they're like hockey lines, right? Like, so we really shuffle them in and out because we demand so much of them running to the ball, getting off the ball, that you can't play with that intensity for 90% of the snaps per the game.
Andrew, with this quarterback class not necessarily being the strongest one in recent memory, and next year is supposed to be stronger, now that you've got 2 first-round picks, are you guys poised to potentially be in a really good position to get that spot next year?
Yeah, I think that's a possibility, Mary Kay, but I also say that we're pretty early in the weekend, so I don't know how the rest of the draft is going to unfold. There's talent across positions, including the quarterback position, and we just really have to see kind of how our next, I'm trying to remember how many picks we have, Peter, but next 7 or 8 picks, whatever it is, unfold throughout the weekend.
Andrew, along those lines, how you said you guys watched quarterback classes 2 years at a time. How much of this trade has something to do with what you saw in that class?
I'd say it's maybe tangentially related, but even with that, quite frankly, unless we were going to take a quarterback there, it's a trade we probably would have done regardless.
Andrew, would you say the goal going into today was to trade out of number 2, first of all?
I don't know that was the goal, as I put it more broadly as using number 2 to make the maximum impact on the team.
And can you say if Hunter would have been the pick at number 2?
That's going to have to go to my grave.
How long was this trade in the works, Andrew?
Yeah, so I'd say this, James and I, we discussed this for probably the better part of 2 weeks. Obviously, we didn't, finalize it until we were on the clock tonight. Actually, it's obviously the first deal I've done with James, but I respect him a lot because he was great to work with, and not often do you work on a big deal and it doesn't necessarily leak immediately. So knowing that he's actually a pretty good trade partner, he deserves a ton of credit for being a partner and bringing this to fruition.
Andrew, obviously a lot still has to play out tonight, but given some of the capital you added, do you feel there's still some advantageous opportunities to potentially move back into the first round before the night's over?
Would never say never.
Graham played 5 different sports, lots of sports in high school. But how much a player like that? I mean, when you're looking into the background and digging into these guys, that versatility in terms of sports they play, how much does that play into the evaluation?
That's a great question, Chris. It's something that we actually track. We actually have a specific area in our scouting reports where we ask our area guys to document that. And candidly, a lot of these players, whether you're skilled player, alignment, or even specialists, a lot of them were top athletes across sports in high school growing up. I think the most impressive thing with Mason that we really liked was just his wrestling background, and you can see that in his play in terms of how he uses leverage, in terms of how he uses his hands, his grip strength, and we do feel like that there's always a pretty good track record of these guys who are high end wrestlers, the big guys who are high end wrestlers, and how that translates. But I would say just his overall athleticism is something that we found attractive at the position.
Andrew, Graham played his first couple years with Minter and then Wink Martindale this past year. Just how was his adjustment to that scheme, and also an advantage because Martindale has NFL experience in a scheme?
So I'd say it's probably a little bit more of an advantage going from Minter to Martindale because, while they're not the same defenses, the requirements of the defensive line in terms of being more of a read and react front are pretty similar. The characteristics are pretty similar. It'll be a little bit more of an adjustment here because we're not a read and react front. We're an attack front. So the good thing is it's simpler mentally, but it usually takes guys maybe a little bit of time to call it like break old habits in that regard. But he's been coached by NFL guys, certainly, so he'll know the standard. Techniques may be a little bit different.
There was a report that you had an offer to move down from 5. Is that true or false?
That is not true.
Not true. Okay.
All the way over here for Ashley. Just with Graham's time at Michigan, I know he was obviously really good 2 years ago when they win a title, but it seems like people say he was even better in 2024. Yeah. Do you see that, number one? And just what about those 2 years as a package? What improvement did you see from him that made him really appealing?
Yeah, I'll be honest. He was, to your point, actually, he was pretty good both years. And the improvement is, I guess, he was just more dominant, more disruptive. This is a guy who he affects the run, he affects the pass, he produces in a variety of ways. I really can't say enough good things about him. So we're excited to get him in our scheme, in our front that really does, highlight the defensive tackle position in terms of what we ask of them, and we're looking forward to that.
Hey, Andrew, back here. I know you mentioned that you and James were talking about this deal for a couple weeks. Can you take us through what today looked like? Did the offer change at all? What was the logistics looking like for you?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of your question.
I said, I know you mentioned that you and James Gladstone have been discussing this deal for the last couple of weeks. Can you take us through today on how it evolved? Did the offer change? Was there a moment of decision for you at any point today?
It's a great question. Honestly, I'd prefer to keep those details private. That's just kind of how I operate with trade discussions with other teams.
Through the draft process, when did you shift to the point where you started to realize a trade was possible or you were going to entertain it? And how many teams did you end up talking to about it?
Yeah, Jeremy, we were always pretty open-minded to it. I think, oftentimes when people think of a pick, it's natural. It automatically goes to okay, well, how do you maximize it by selecting? But it's a resource, and there are so many different avenues that you can use the resource to improve your team. Whether it's what we did tonight, whether it's, I'll use the example, whether it's we're picking Travis Hunter, whether it's you're selecting a quarterback, whether it's you use it to trade for a high-end veteran. And so we really went into the spring pretty open-minded because, part of our DNA is we want to be opportunistic and flexible. We don't want to necessarily close off, our mind to how we can best utilize a resource to improve the team. So it was, I guess, our process probably went a little bit in parallel as we gained more information about the players and we thought through how we would actually use the pick. And ultimately it came down to okay, well, what will we potentially get offered? Who's going to be on the board? What's our assessment of those prospects? And then, given those prospects, how big of an impact can they have on the team in the long term? Relative to what we could have in a trade package.
Again, that was Andrew Berry tonight in Berea talking about newest Brown, Mason Graham, and the trade from 2 to 5 gets the Browns a number 1 next year in addition to a 2 this year. Let's take a look at where we're at with the draft in the first round. Number 1 overall was Cam Ward. Then Travis Hunter was taken by the Titans after the trade, by the Jaguars after the trade with the Browns. Abdul Carter goes to the Giants. Will Campbell to the Patriots. Mason Graham is the Browns selection. Ashton Genty, the next pick to the Raiders. Mamambu to the Jets with 7. McMillan, wide receiver, goes to the Panthers at 8. Banks Jr. to the Saints. Loveland, the first tight end off the board, is not Tyler Warren. It's Colston Loveland from Michigan. And Mikel Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia, goes to the 49ers with the 11th pick. So a little over a third of the way through round 1. And Lance, obviously the first round pick, big deal. Next year in that trade. The other thing it speaks to is, and I had said this with Hunter, and I was always concerned. He's about $188, and man, I don't want my stud wide receiver playing on the other side and trying to tackle guys like Derrick Henry. So those might have been some of the things that factored into you trade down 3 spots, you acquire a 2 this year and 1 next year, and you still get a guy that you think is one of the best football players in this draft.
Well, going back to what we said, I think the key is that they found a football player. And there are a lot of times this isn't a guy based on his size this is a guy who makes a ton of plays. You know, not getting Hunter, I think you're right, 188 pounds. But the thing that shocks me about Hunter is how physical he really is. And so being physical, and everybody wants you to be physical in the NFL, that's not a good thing when you're 188 pounds because that leads to injury. So I think that might have tied into it. I also think, you know, it shows the value of the defensive line for the Browns, right? Now, Mason Graham is a guy who is, like I said, I think he makes him better initially because he's a 3-down guy. He's a wrestler. He fits that mentality. He's nasty. He will bring kind of an edge to that defense. He will help those interior guys. When you talk about Batonio and Posick and Teller, he's going to make those guys all better because of his skill set. And the Browns haven't had a guy, in my opinion, who can do all of it, right, in terms of 320 pounds, anchor in there, and can also rush the passer.
Well, Mason Graham, here's his reaction to being drafted by the Browns.
Michigan man, but did you just make nice with the state of Ohio?
I guess so. I mean, that's where my future's at, and I'm going to do everything I can, you know, put Cleveland back on top.
You hang up that phone call and you know you're about to line up next to Myles Garrett every day. How does that sound?
I mean, it's such a blessing. You know, he's a fierce competitor. I want to play with guys like that, and yeah, he's the real deal. So,
congratulations, Mason.
Appreciate it.
Again, Mason Graham, defensive tackle, first pick of the Browns, number 5 overall, and they get a second first-round pick next year. I imagine Myles Garrett has to be pretty happy as well. You know, you're gonna have to kind of pick your poison. A 320-pound guy with good feet. Do you double team him, or do you double team the defensive player of the year from a season ago?
Well, you know, and what they've done is they've made that front 7 really, really talented at every position, right? So if you think about a third down situation in nickel, you got Hall, you can have Graham, you can have Myles, you can have a plethora. Alex Wright had a really good year last year. Obo has shown the ability to rush the passer. This guy, he gives you, he's not needy, right? He doesn't need anything special. He's just going to play that 3 technique. He's going to anchor in there. He's going to rush the passer. Like I said, it's great balance, great hands. But the better people they have outside Myles is going to make Myles better. And I think that's kind of what they're looking for as well, to maximize the skill set of Myles Garrett. And it also helps the offense. They still have to get help for the offense, but if you can create short fields and things like that, it helps. And I think that's their thought.
Yeah, the phrase you often use is, guy's a football player. When you watch Mason Graham on tape, is he a football player?
Well, that's why he was number 1 on my board, because he's nasty, he's violent, he plays every play. And once again, even though he has the measurables, he's one of those guys that the measurables don't matter. Even though I know he's 320, he runs really well, but when you put on the film, I try to base everything on the film. I don't base it a ton on potential. But this guy is a football player. He will make Browns fans happy when the season starts. Obviously, everybody wanted the splash guy, and Travis Hunter was that guy. But with a guy who's 188 pounds, you're rolling the dice there a little bit. Mason Graham, you're not rolling the dice as much, right? You got a guy who's 320 pounds, a guy who can run, a guy with great movement skills, fits the scheme. This is a really good pick if they can address some of their offensive deficiencies.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. 330-963-7763, the number to call if you want to get involved. We are taking phone calls. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. More of the Sports for CLE Draft Night Special, Round 1. Stay with us.
To go forward, back to learning new things, back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, you know, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million?
New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in. I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million. New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Welcome back to Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special. Round one continues, and the Dolphins have taken Kenneth Grant's teammate of Mason Graham, who the Browns took with their pick, number 5 overall. So the Dolphins go defensive tackle as well. So, Lance, really the next thing you're starting to look at is the quarterbacks. You would think end of the first round, early second round, potentially. I don't think anything's locked solid, but I certainly think that's kind of the next place where people would be looking.
Well, it's interesting. We're talking with Tim. That was an interesting question, right? If Shedeur is available late in round one, do they like the consistency of Shedeur within the system, or do they like what Milroe could potentially give you, right? So the ceiling is probably higher even with Milroe, but the floor is also lower, right? So I would say because Stefanski's back calling the plays, if Shedeur is still around late in the round, give up a little bit, go back and get him. Now you got another game wrecker at the 5th pick in the draft, and you got the quarterback that you kind of thought may be with the Browns anyway. So it'd be interesting as it moves forward. I think obviously the Steelers pick, they need a quarterback. We'll see what happens here, but I'd go back and get Shedeur just because I agree with Tim. He's a guy. He'll be around. I don't know what a star he'll be, but he's going to be a really good player and a really good pro.
All right, hold on to that thought. Let's head to the phones. Glenn from Utah. Thanks for calling in, Glenn. What's on your mind?
Yeah. After waiting for weeks, I was initially a little disappointed, but now that time's set in, and thinking about Graham, and if Hall comes on like he was showing promise and stays healthy, then the defensive line can be a real force. And it seemed like the last few years we needed help in the middle to help stop the run. So the middle. So I'm hoping this will all pan out for the best.
Yeah, I would agree with you. What are you hoping for in early in the second round? Now they have 2 picks early in the second round. What are you hoping for relative to that?
Well, I want to see this go for some offense because of how bad it was last year. I'd like to see a running back. There's blue chip running backs, I think, coming up. We could use a wide receiver, and so far there's only been one quarterback taken, and the Browns need a quarterback. So I'm not sure who's left who wants a quarterback besides the Steelers, but.
Yeah,
of course, that'd be great.
Which of the quarterbacks you like? Let's say all of them are going to be there whenever the Browns decide to take one. Dart, Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Will Howard. Is there one that you like for the Browns?
Yeah, I think I've been influenced by all the show such as Milroe. It sounds really intriguing to me. Of course, I love Howard because I'm a Buckeye alumni. But second round seems a little early to take him. I think you can get him later. So either Milroe or Howard would be my 2 favorites. But Shedeur would be great too. So
Glenn, appreciate the call. Thanks very much. Hopefully, give us a call back tomorrow when they make that quarterback pick later tonight.
Okay, thanks for taking my call. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Appreciate it. So, Lance, here's the question: is it worth potentially getting the 5th year, because first round's 5th year option, to give up if you got to give up a 4th round pick, which is now later in the 4th round because you traded back it went from 104 to like 122, 126, something like that from the Jaguars. Would you give up that 4th round pick to get a 5th year option on a quarterback that you like? You'd have to like him.
Well, I think it goes back to what you said. Do you like him, right? And I think that's the ultimate question: is how do they feel about Shedeur Sanders? Is he their guy? Just wasn't quite the right fit. Did they going back to what we said, the defensive line, they have these guys now that can get it to second, third long, which will help that pass rush that we all talk about. But at the quarterback, if you like the quarterback, then yeah, I think that's worth it, right? You get that 5th year option. I think, like I said with Shedeur, the Milroe, for me, where the Browns are at right now. I think it's too much of a risk just because you need guys right now that can play, and I think Shedeur Sanders is the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft, including Cam Ward.
Yeah, again, we'll continue to talk quarterbacks here because that's likely where they're headed, either in the 2nd or 3rd round. Let's head back to the phones. Phil from St. Clairsville. Thanks for joining us, Phil. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, Dave. I'm called in quite a bit over the last couple years, and I guess my question or comment is why they didn't take Travis Hunter, and why did they take Mason Graham? You got to remember where we're playing. It's AFC North. It's AFC North football. think physical play. And then it's really important that we got that 2026 pick. And the second rounder, pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
A DT who can push the pocket and stuff the run. Man, this D-line could be elite.
I'm with you. It kills me not to be able to get a playmaker. But yeah, I understand the line of thinking. Hunter's a little lean, and again, I like Graham. Again, a defensive tackle is not real sexy, but yeah, they have the makings of a pretty physically dominant defensive line, which should be able to help you win football games.
Yeah, but they sure do need to go offense. I'd say the next 3 to 4 picks, offense, offense, offense. I noticed Lance earlier in the show mentioned Luther Burden. I wonder if he'd be a good slot receiver, because I really think the Browns like Tillman and Judy on the outside. And then running back, I'm all about Caleb Johnson or the Ohio State guys. Boy, if you get those guys, we got ourselves an offense.
Which of the quarterbacks do you like? I'm just curious. I'm guessing Will Howard. I'm guessing Will Howard because all Buckeye fans like him. But which quarterback do you like?
Well, it's going to depend upon who's there, of course. And Howard, I would consider, I don't know, 3rd, 4th round, wherever you have to take him. But I really like Jackson Dart. I like his toughness and moxie, and the guy can throw. And Milroe, I like his ties with Tommy Reese. I think he got the most out of him in his junior year. And I think he could really use the coaching and possibly coach him up to be a not quite Lamar type, but at least a heck of a player down the road. So one of those two.
Yeah, I'm with you. The one thing I think is the upside for Milroe is intriguing. Boy, the downside scares me. I'm not going to lie, but at that point, I think you swing for the fences and hope you make some contact.
You got it, guys. Well, hey, let's go some offense, and let's go Browns, okay?
All right. Appreciate the phone call, Phil. Thanks very much. So, Lance, I love everything he said. I'm with him. Luther Burden works. It's going to be interesting that there are some people that think Hampton from North Carolina could slide into the early 2nd round. And that's a guy, some have a little bit behind Genty because he's got contact balance, he breaks tackles, and he's more of a complete back. And this is, again, we're splitting hairs between Hampton and Henderson and all of those guys.
Well, what Hampton gives you, he gives you what the Browns really like as well. He's going to give you that Nick Chubb power, right? So he's not only going to get you to 2nd 5, but he's also a breakaway guy. So I actually had Henderson as number 1. Genty is 2, just because Genty's he's too violent, if that makes any sense. But Hampton is a guy who's kind of right in that middle, big, thick, lower body, another guy with great contact balance. Comes from a scheme. He's best downhill in gap scheme. Browns run a ton of gap scheme. So I think he'd be a great fit because of the fact he gets you to, more than anything else, he gets you to 2nd 5. And if you want to help your quarterback out, get him to 2nd 5. Because that'll make the play calling easier. That'll make his life a lot easier. Play great defense, run the ball on 1st down. You can help him a lot.
Let's welcome in Damon Wolf from Dogs by Nature to the show. Damon, welcome in. Appreciate the time joining us here. The trade back in Graham, what do you think? Just your reaction to the Browns' first pick.
Yeah, I kind of caught the tail end of your comments there, and I guess I'm kind of in the same boat. I guess I love the idea of adding Travis Hunter and that kind of talent to the roster. However, I do really understand the decision that they made and why they ended up trading the pick. With Mason Graham, I think it's a very safe pick. He has a very high floor. Also, he does have some high upside as well. And I really like the fit with the Browns and Jim Schwartz and Schwartz's defense. And I trust the coaching staff with Schwartz along with Jacques Caesar to be able to get the most out of him and develop him into the player that I think he can become. I think, ultimately, just watching Graham Graham's tape, he reminds me a lot of Christian Wilkins, and if he can be like 80 to 90% of that in the league, I think that would be a pretty good deal for the Browns.
And if you think of Jim Schwartz's defenses, he usually has a defensive tackle kind of like that. And, you know, the Browns have been unable to, I mean, Tomlinson was good, don't get me wrong. But Schwartz usually has a tackle that gets back and gets after it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think, you know, Mason Graham, he's a game wrecker. He's really going to, he's an upgrade over Tomlinson for sure. And I think that, you know, pairing him up with Michael Hall, you know, and being able to really get after the quarterback on the inside, you know, the game is certainly going that way. That's why they're paying defensive tackles more than ever, and that's why they're paying guards more than they ever have. And I think the value of the position and the need on the roster kind of matches up of what the Browns needed on the defensive line.
Do you think they got enough to move back three? So you still get a really good football player. You get a first-round pick next year and a second-round pick. I'm pretty happy with the haul they got for moving back 3 spots. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been hard to really pass that deal up. I mean, as much as I love Travis Hunter, being able to get the first next year and the second this year, the second this year was a big aspect to the trade. You know, I'm looking at some of the value charts earlier when some of the rumors were going on. I think I heard that, you know, maybe the number 70 pick would have got the deal done typically. So being able to get 36 is a huge win in that regard. And I think they're going to be in position to get some really good players here at the top of the second round.
And Damon, I don't know about you, but I will scream if it's not skill position guys that can threaten a defense.
Dave, we've been talking about it for weeks, and they absolutely have to attack on offense and get some guys that can do some damage with the ball in their hands.
So, Damon, where are you looking? Do you see the Browns trading back into the first round for a quarterback, or do they just sit at 33?
I don't. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm really interested to see what happens here over the next several picks, especially at 21 with Pittsburgh. I doubt that they take Shedeur Sanders with that pick, but you never know. And I think that might ultimately influence it. But if I were the Browns, I would really just sit back. I mean, now that you have the Jacksonville's first round pick next year, I don't know how much that changes the calculus on things and if they're maybe a little bit more patient and willing to wait. But I think that if they can get 2 really good premium players on the offensive side of the ball at 33 and 36, I might try to see if you can be a little patient and possibly trade up from 67 back, you know, up earlier into the back of the second round to try to get a guy if he's still there, if he falls, even if that's a guy like Tyler Shuck.
Damon, I got a question for you. When you look at the running backs, do you think there's any running backs on day 3 that can be really productive in this Browns offense? You know, seeing that they're probably going to go back to more of the Kevin Stefanski power run scheme?
Definitely. I think, you know, day 3 running backs, I would certainly love to see Damian Martinez. He's one of my favorite guys. I also really like, especially for the Stefanski system, I like Devin Neal a lot. Also, Giddens from Kansas State is a really good runner that I could see doing very well with the Browns.
Absolutely.
When you look at wide receivers, who do you think might be there early in the second round for the Browns?
Well, for me, it would be Luther Burden, who not counting Travis Hunter, I had Burden second right behind McMillan in this draft. Now, I know that there's a little bit of character concern, you know, kind of more so on like the high maintenance diva side of him as a personality. And I think that's why he's dipped a little bit this draft cycle after his season last year where he didn't quite have the production he did the year before at Missouri, but a lot of that was on the quarterback play, on the offense overall, and I think he got a little frustrated with that at times. But from a talent perspective, when he's on and he's playing well, he can do it all. I mean, he can run by the secondary. You get the ball in his hands on crossers and slants, and he can get a lot of yards after the catch. So when you pair that or match that up with what the Browns already have, with Tillman definitely at the X. I do think that Burden, can definitely play on the outside of the Z, but he can also play on the slot as well.
Any other positions you think come into play early in that second round? Could you see them?
I'm still looking for offensive tackle really early. Maybe that pick in that range. If a guy like Josh Connerly is there, or even Josh Simmons, I could really see those two being that developmental tackle for a year and being ready to step in next year.
Do you think they can catch the ball at all? Because we need some receivers. We need some receivers.
You want the wide receivers. I'll tell you what. I'll give you one guy. I wouldn't rule out Mason Taylor.
Yeah, that's
possibly at that 36 range to help out the offense. They got to do something at tight end too, because all they have right now is Njoku.
Yeah, and Taylor's an intriguing one. That was a guy that with all the really good receivers at LSU still found a way to factor into the game. His dad played at the University of Akron. That's Jason Taylor's son. That makes me feel really old.
He's 20.
Yeah.
He's 20. He's a young kid.
Yeah, and so talented wide receiver. That would play right. You got the bloodlines and everything that Browns seem to like as well.
Yeah, he's a good player. I think he can, fill several roles. He can play in line eventually, and he can, be effective in the pass game. Super athletic. He's a real smooth route runner, and he just plucks the ball out of the air. So he's got really good hands. I think he might need a little bit of time to develop and get a little bit stronger before he reaches his full potential. But I definitely think he's a guy that the Browns like, and I know that they visited and spent quite a bit of time with him.
Damon Wolf, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Tell us again, you have a draft site, DraftStacks.com. So tell us a little bit about that before I let you go.
Yeah, so I did a little website covering my draft work for this, draft cycle. It's at DraftStacks.com. Everybody can access it for free. There's over 300 player profiles there. I also put out a Browns-specific draft board of 50 of the most likely players that I think that the Browns will target this weekend.
All right, give us a couple that are on the top of that then. Give us the next couple at the top of the second.
We talked about them. I mean, Luther Burden's still there. Josh Connerly's still there. So those are two guys I would really like. I have first-round grades on those guys overall. I had 18 first-round grades in the entire class, and those two are still sitting there at the top. So we'll see.
As always, great stuff. Appreciate it, Damon. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you some more. Thanks very much, Damon.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Nice talking to you.
All right. Damon Wolf, Dogs by Nature, also DraftStacks.com. Always good stuff with the draft prospects. Gosh, I don't make me cry. Don't take an offensive lineman at 33. And again, I know you play in the trenches, but we've looked at what the skill positions look like. They need help.
Well, yeah, and if you think about Damien said, so Luther Burden, and then you can get a really good back as well in that second round. I mean, there's an opportunity to really improve that offense there. The good thing about tight end, running back, some of these positions of need, really, really deep. And some of the second round grades I have, some of the third round grades I have, those guys will be available late day 3. So there's the guys, especially at tight end, especially at running back, there's guys they can go out and get that can help them move the football. And as we say all the time, it's easy yards. It's not always an explosive play. It's getting 8, making it, giving the offensive coordinator the option to run or pass. And that's what they haven't had. They've been run, pass, and they got to get away from that to be more successful.
So let's go back talking about the quarterbacks. Dart's an intriguing one. The Browns did a ton of work on him. They sent Kevin Stefanski, who is involved in the quarterback analysis, and as he should be in scouting him. They sent him to his pro day. Who does it come down to? All right, I'm going to give you, if all three of those guys, Shedeur, Milroe, Dart, are sitting there, let's say it's at 33 and you don't have to trade up, which one of them are you taking?
Well, I would go in order. I would take Shedeur Sanders first. I would take Dart, and then I would take Milroe. That would be my third. And the reasoning why would be this. Shedeur Sanders, the scheme fit, right? Anticipation, accuracy, ability to throw, be in structure, throw from the pocket, go through progressions, and then check it down.
Yep.
Then I would go Jackson Dart, because Jackson Dart's really good in play action. Now, some of his issues that I've had is that he's really hot and cold. In fact, I've never broken down a quarterback who's been more hot and more cold than he is. Now, playing in Lane Kiffin's system also he did a lot of one guy reads, right? So he's reading on their a lot of RPOs from brilliant mind, Lane Kiffin, but a lot of one guy reads, which you don't get a ton of in the NFL. You're multiple levels, right? And then Milroe would be third with the highest ceiling. But I don't think the Browns need a guy like that. I think the Browns, now it wouldn't shock me if they took him, and I wouldn't be upset if they did, but the Browns are in a win-now situation. And they need a guy that can help them win now. And if a quarterback's going to play, the guy who can play next year would be Shedeur Sanders.
All right, let's head back to phone lines. Taylor from Columbus. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, fellas? I wanted to speak on the trade. I was excited when it happened, and I was excited about the pick. Mason Graham is the safe but awesome pick. I think Travis Hunter was more of the sexy pick. Now, I'm not saying he could not have been like an instant contributor, but first we need a quarterback that can take advantage of his skill set. But as far as Mason Graham, it's like people forget what happened in the Super Bowl with the Eagles and their front line. They dominated AC, right? And that guy had no time to throw the football. And I think that's what we're building in Cleveland. What Andrew Berry is doing, he's mimicking the Super Bowl team and what they did. And I think that's what we need if we're going to get back to contention. And I love the extra picks that we picked up.
Yeah, again, you need competent quarterback play, which the Browns didn't have last year. But you also win with elite position groups or sections of your team. This front seven, JOK's healthy. You add Mason Graham. The front seven has a chance to be elite.
Oh, absolutely. And then if Mike Hall, if he continues to progress, I think he flashed last year, and the only reason he didn't look as good as he possibly could have is because he was injured. But we have to keep in mind, now we have two younger guys that can be key contributors for the next 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, I'm with you. Which of the they need offense. Which of the quarterbacks do you like?
So I agree with Lance that Shedeur Sanders is the guy that fits Kevin Stefanski's system. But I don't want to rush any of the quarterbacks. If we draft any of them, I think we need to allow them to develop. We have Joe Flacco, we have Kenny Pickett, and we need to see what these guys can do while the new drafted quarterback, he has an opportunity to learn, especially from Joe Flacco. Now, if it's not Sanders, I'm going to say Milroe because I'm not a fan of Jackson Dart and Lance. He keyed on the reasons why, because he was in that one-read system, and we've seen quarterbacks that came from that system, they don't necessarily succeed in the NFL. And there's another quarterback I like. I think his name is Tyler Shuck. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. I like him more so than I like Jackson Dart. So I would go with Shedeur Sanders first, Milroe second, Tyler Shook, and I don't think I would draft Jackson Dart, to be honest.
All right, fair enough. What about skill position guys? Running backs, wide receivers. Who do you, assuming there's a bunch of guys there at 33, who's the dream scenario for you for the Browns at 33, first pick of the second round?
Well, I think we need to take the quarterback with that first pick in the second round. And this is where the trade comes in because, what is it, 36, I believe, that we have?
Yep, 36. I think it's 33 and 36.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something along those lines, yeah.
I love Mason Taylor and allowing him to develop and working with David Njoku. And then I like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I think he would be an awesome running back in the zone running scheme that Stefanski likes to run.
Taylor, appreciate the phone call. Thanks very much. And call us back if the Browns trade in and make another move.
Will do, man.
All right, have a good one.
Absolutely.
The Bengals have just selected Shamir Stewart, a young edge rusher from Texas A&M. So the first of the AFC North teams drafting here in the first round after the Browns did, and it's Shamir Stewart, edge rusher from Texas A&M. Their big money guy, Trey Hendrickson, not happy and wants to get paid more. So,
yeah, really good defensive line at Texas A&M. That's him, Scorton, a bunch of other guys. He's a guy who, once again, fits all those measurables, right? Now, wasn't as productive as you'd like to see. Sometimes his measurables don't match the production on the field. But once again, the long arms, extremely violent with his hands. A lot of those guys, you'll see him dunking a basketball there. There's a lot of, he just has all those skills that you can't pass.
And there you see him playing for Texas A&M. Drew some comparisons because of the way he can run and bend a little bit to Myles Garrett, but that's a little bit of a stretch at this point.
Well, and it's not as consistent, right? So that's the big thing. He does flash, but he's got to be more consistent at the NFL level because everybody, a lot of times these college, especially these college defensive linemen, they win because they're bigger and better. You're not going to be bigger and better all the time in the NFL. You got to be able to have a pass rush plan and things like that. So really talented guy and a guy that I thought could slide into the first round. I had him all over the board in my mocks just because of the production doesn't match those elite skills he has.
Well, and again, it's a young guy that's still trying to figure, he's got to build his pass rushing plan and his attacks and get moves to stack on top of each other.
Well, the things that he can do, you can't teach, and that's when you start some of these general managers, and that's how they think, and there's a lot to be said about that because you can coach a guy, but if he doesn't have physical skills, I've said it for a long time. You win with players. You don't. You win with plays. You don't win with players, and it's the players have to be good. So I think that's what you see in Shamar Stewart. It's just his outlandish ceiling that he can have at the NFL level.
All right, let's talk a little bit. All right, if Luther Burden is there, he's obviously the guy that you like. Say he goes into the first round. Who are some wide receivers that you think the Browns look at 33, 36, wherever they go early in that second round?
We got Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, who's really, really talented. But again, he's an outside one guy. Emeka Mbuka is another guy. Mbuka is a guy that a lot of people have higher than Bernard. If the Browns didn't have Jerry Jeudy and Tillman in terms of trying to build this roster, you think of them as the outside guys, right? The guys who are running the digs, the curls, the comebacks. You need a guy in the slot, and if they don't get Luther Burden, then maybe they wait and get a guy like Xavier Restrepo in the 6th, 7th round because he's a guy ultra productive, only a slot receiver, and is very quarterback friendly. So that would be my thought on the slot receiver. And then again, if going back to your quarterback question, Tyler Shuck is in that same category we were talking about with Milroe, Dart, and Sanders. Shuck is right there with me as well.
All right, let's head back to the phones. John in Columbus. John, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Yeah, the draft choice in the first round.
Yep.
I think they're stupid. They should have got Hunter because they should have had on the first round, he's a 2-for-1. You got a wide receiver and a DB. They need both positions, and they take a lineman. Now, he's a great lineman. I'm not questioning that. So that is a good pick. But, no, I think Hunter's your best choice in that because you get 2-for-1, and they didn't do it. So it doesn't surprise me because that's the pick. Every year they seem to somehow screw it up.
Well, yeah, that I can't argue. I don't know that anybody is going to actually be able to play both sides of the football for an entire NFL game. That's a guy that weighs 188 pounds, and I said that before they traded him. I could see him in packages. If they don't trade one of their cornerbacks, you still have Greg Newsome, who, again, I know there are a lot of people that aren't crazy about him. You have Denzel Ward. You have M.J. Emerson. They just signed Nick Needham. They have Cam Mitchell. So cornerback isn't really a position of need unless you trade one of those guys.
Well, it's like, who the heck are all those guys?
Well,
we don't know who those guys all are. I've never heard of some of them.
Well, they just signed Needham. Denzel Ward has been playing. M.J. Emerson. He played for the Dolphins last year. He tore his ACL. He has about He was drafted in the third round by the Lions. He's played about 45, 50 NFL games. Cam Mitchell was a fifth-round pick. MJ Emerson was a third-round pick by the Browns. Played really well as a rookie. Didn't play so well last year. Greg Newsome was a fifth-round pick. He's on his fifth-year option. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the third-round pick coming up, first of all, the trade was kind of nice because they got some good picks and they got a first round next year. I think they're going to use that first round to trade up either next year or this draft. But the third pick, I think they should take an offensive tackle.
I'm looking at their wide receivers and running backs and going, please get me somebody that threatens the defense with the ball in his hands. I get they need, you don't know what you have in DeJuan Jones at this point because he hadn't been able to stay healthy. The other tackle, Jack Conklin, is up there in years. I get it. Bitonio's a guard. He's getting up there. Teller's getting up there. You do have Zach Zinter. Again, he didn't play well as a rookie. He was coming off a broken leg. I think he's going to be pretty good. You got Luke Whippler as a center. So,
well, he's a Buckeye. We know he's good.
There you go.
Yeah. So I agree with you 100% because I'm 68 years old. Been watching the Browns since I was in the Iowa cricket. Okay, and I'm kind of sick of them getting so close.
Yeah.
It's like, damn. I mean, we still have the freaking Denver game burned in my memory.
Yeah, I still think Carlos missed the kick. I'm with you, but we can commiserate about that for a while.
Good talking with you, man. Have a good week.
All right, you too. Appreciate the phone call, John in Columbus. I get why people are frustrated about trading out of two, but I do like Mason Graham, and now you got to go get me some playmakers.
Well, yeah, that was their plan. Once again, the only bad plan is no plan, right? So obviously Barry's a guy who sticks to whatever his plan is, he sticks to it. And, that could be really, really good or a detriment, coming in the future. But Graham's a certain, right? And they need those guys too. And as much as they need talent, the other thing they need is football players. And they need tough football players who have a little bit of an edge, who have a little bit of an attitude, who have a little bit that they bring like an energy that the Browns don't always have. They want Myles Garrett to be a leader. Myles Garrett leads by being the best player on the field. So they need a guy who's kind of edgy, and that's what Mason Graham is going to give this defense. He gives them an edge. But going back to what we said, now they got to go out and get some guys, right? And there are guys in this draft that will be around that will help them next year.
Yeah, and relative to Myles Garrett, don't ask people to be something they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a leader by showing up and sacking the quarterback 3-4 times every game. People can spot that. When you're in a locker room, guys know who you are, and you can't fake it.
Well, and I always listen to my dad when he talked about this. Rah-rah sometimes is fake,
Right.
So what really is leadership is leading by example. Some guys are vocal, right? And
right.
Then, Ray Lewis.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, when you think about Ray Lewis, but you got to back that up then, like a Ray Lewis. But really, what sells other players is energy. Having great energy every day at practice, every day in the meetings, wanting to be there. It sounds kind of weird. They're in the NFL, but I'm sure there's guys like that. There's guys like that at every level. You got to really. This is what you do for a living. And you got to really enjoy doing it. And that's what when I watch Miles practice, that's what I see. A guy who likes playing football. But the rah-rah stuff, that's not him. And the edgy stuff, that's not him. That will be Mason Graham. Mason Graham has a little bit of an edge to him, and I think that it really helps the defense. They got to get a safety. They need a linebacker, maybe, just with JOK. But that you're talking front seven. That entire defense has a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Kevin Stefanski out in Berea talking about that pick of Mason Graham in the trade back from 2 to 5 to get him.
You passed up on not just Travis, but Abdul. Fans will look at that as giving up the opportunity to add at least one blue chip type of talent that can be transformational. When you watch Mason on tape, I know Andrew said he fits your defensive DNA with what Jim Schwartz asked for. You're playing against guys like Lamar and Joe Burrow twice a year. When you watch him on tape, what is it that you see in him that kind of gives you that same feeling that he can have the same transformational impact for you?
Yeah, I think there's the fit piece of this, Daryl, in terms of the skill set in our scheme, but also the production is there. This is not a guy that's been doing it for one game or one season. He's been doing it for a long time and been productive in his career. So I think what you see from this player has been consistent, and he is a guy that is constantly disrupting the offense, and in obviously the run game, and able to defeat blocks and make plays down the line, using his speed for such a big man, and then in the pass game, being disruptive, beating guards. I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about it with Miles on our team. There's opportunities to rush on guards when you're defensive tackle with the center potentially going away. It's a true one-on-one, and it's the nearest point to the quarterback. And just feel really strong about his skill set. Feel really strong about the person. I just think he fits who we are.
With Mason, Kevin, it just seems like everyone always brings up the wrestling background and the leverage and things like that. Like, how much does that just pop on his film, and how unique does that make him in the scheme of this D-line class?
Yeah, as coaches, you love when guys near the ball have that background, because you're so often having to work through contact and stay balanced. So I do think there's a very advantageous part of being on that wrestling mat and then taking it to the football field, because you know how to lean, you know how to get on one leg and transfer power to the other. So I think that's a really big part of it, and it's something he's used. You can see it on tape, him using that background.
Hey, Kevin, with you guys not having a first-round pick in the last 3 years, did that make it all more appealing to pick up another one in this deal?
Yeah, I think it's a strong deal. You know, we felt good about the deal from a compensation, what's going in, what's going out, that type of thing. Feel like it's good for both teams. But obviously those picks, certainly the pick next year, having multiple first-round picks is a big deal.
And then with Mason, what kind of pre-draft interactions did you have personally with him, and was there anything memorable about any of it?
Met with him at the combine in the quick speed dating portion of the combine. Brought him in here for a top 30 visit. Really like everything about him. Just what he brings to the building. He's got a nastiness to him. He can, to play defensive line, particularly in our front, you got to have a little bit of an edge, and he's got a big edge. And I like what he brings to this football team. I think, we've talked a lot about the scheme fit, but I also think just his competitive nature, his toughness, I think that's a big part of this as well.
Joe and then Kim.
Kevin, you talked about players coming from a two-gap to an attack scheme. Mm-hmm. Is it better for a young player, getting them younger, to come into that maybe?
Probably. I think Coach Schwartz could definitely speak to this. He's had a lot of guys in his past that, just like you said, were in the league for 5 years, and then he got to them and worked hard in that scheme. And it's no secret how you just have to get on the grass and work at it. So there's plenty of glimpses on tape with Mason, though, that show you very clearly that has the ability to play attack scheme.
You've been mentioning the importance of the player, too. You talked about Mason's competitiveness, but what else about him as the person made him such a fit, because that was so important to you guys in the selection?
Yeah, I think, Cam, you do so much work on these guys. You find out damn near everything about them, and you talk to their high school coaches and their position coaches, and you just get a really well-rounded picture of the person, how they've been raised, what their work ethic is like, and then you get to spend time with them. You get to get a feel for the person, and I just know that his makeup fits our culture. Yes, you're Tony. I don't remember JD saying that. I do. I mean, listen, you could talk yourself into as many good players and put them all over the formation as you can. I can definitely speak to an offensive coach's perspective. It is difficult when you have an outside guy and an inside guy. There are times that you're going to want them on the same side. There are plenty of times you're going to want them opposite each other for obvious reasons. Miles, we've talked about this ad nauseum. He gets a lot of attention, and it comes in the form of chips. It comes in the form of slides. That opens up one-on-ones for other players, whether it's an outside player or an inside player. Now, as we've all seen, plenty of teams put two tight ends on both sides and can chip both sides. So there's certainly ways to try to slow down interior players. I think you see more often with the chip help that people give and certainly devote to Miles and outside players. The interior players can get that quicker win, puts them in the lap of the quarterback. Just interior players in the attack scheme. Man, I wish Coach Schwartz was up here for a history lesson. He's had some great ones. We were just up there talking about his Bills defensive line, with, I guess it was Mario Williams, Hughes, Marcel Darius, Kyle Williams inside. I mean, those were four guys that could win by themselves, but they really had an outside and inside presence. But this scheme and how Coach Schwartz coaches it and what we demand of our guys up front is really to be the engine, of course, but also to mess things up, mess stuff up. Other words are sometimes used. And that's what this defensive line is charged to do. And I think that's why when you watch Mason's tape, you see so many examples of that where it's very easy to translate that player into our scheme.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
And Lance, so we've heard both Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski talk about the fit and how he's perfect fit for the scheme. Vernon Hargraves is one of the guys. Schwartz had a couple of them with the Eagles, a couple of them when he was the special assistant for defense with the Titans. He'll know what to do with Mason Graham. He already has an idea of how to unleash him.
Well, yeah, and he was talking about two-gapping, right? So two-gapping means you're taking on a guy and you have the gap to either your right or your left. That's hard to do, and that's something you had to learn. He's kind of already done that. The transition to a gap, more of a gap penetrator, that relies on athleticism and size, which he has. So I think the transition, that's what they're talking about, that transition you can see with Mason Graham. Again, though, he brings an attitude, as you heard Stefanski say, in terms of fitting the scheme and his ability to get upfield and his ability to take on blockers. And he's talking about the center. It's as important it is to have the other side of edge rusher. The three technique away from Miles is really important too, because that center usually will slide that way to help. So there's a lot of things you can do. The thing that the Schwartz defensive tackle has a couple things, no matter where he's been. They're really athletic. They penetrate. And they can play all three downs because they kind of have this physical build to them. So he fits the mold perfectly.
All right, so the defense is pretty good. I thought it was pretty good a season ago. Now, you did need somebody when you got rid of Dalvin Tomlinson. You brought in a different guy in Malik Collins. This defense is pretty good. You do need a safety. I'll give you that. The offense needs a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what they have to do is they have to say in their staff meetings, I would think they would be saying, all right, regardless of who they pick, it's going to be a work in progress because those guys are going to be young. So what they have to do is my dad used to say, play close to the best, right? So they have to make sure that they end every drive in a kick. This is going to sound redundant for me. I say it almost every week with you, right? They have to end every drive in a kick, but don't turn the ball over. Then they have to make sure that they create short fields, right? They have to make sure they create some turnovers. They have to make sure that they do everything they can in relation to making sure that that the defense is the focal point. So on 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9, you might decide just to run the ball and punt it, right? Instead of maybe throwing the ball against the nickel front where they're blitzing and you throw an interception, right? So always going into the season, no, I'm going to protect the defense. The offense is going to be a work in progress, but it won't be a work in progress if they get some guys that can do it. Now, Seth Tillman's going to improve. Jerry Jeudy's going to improve. They need a back. They need tight ends. There's things they need. We know that. But the big thing is go into the season knowing that the defense is your focal point. And if you do that, kick the ball, play good defense, and make it as manageable as you can for the offense.
So the Steelers are now on the clock, and we are going to take a quick time out here on Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special. We'll see. Do the Steelers draft Shedeur Sanders, or is there a chance the Browns could trade back into the bottom half of the first round and try to get their quarterback? We'll have more on Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in. I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
Are you okay coming back? Are you okay coming back to Buckeye Country?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, man. Listen, we're gonna take you off the board here. We can't wait to get you back to Cleveland. Rush the passer for us, attack and disrupt. You're tailor-made for this system, and I'm really excited to make you a Cleveland Brown tonight.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, I got Coach here for you, all right?
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
You're a Brown, dude.
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
Hey, we need tough, competitive guys up here, and you fit the bill, so we can't wait to get you up here.
I'm ready.
I know you are. Hey, congratulations.
Hey, excited, man. This scheme's going to fit you really well. Love your effort, and you're going to be the engine that makes us run, right?
Big fella, how you doing? How you feeling, huh?
Unreal right now.
Congratulations, man.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, hey, let's get it, man. Hey, can't wait to have you. Can't wait to work with you, man. And I'm happy for you. Congratulations. Enjoy your night, but be ready to work, all right?
Yes, sir. All right, cool. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, obviously the Browns interacting with their first-round pick, Mason Graham, defensive tackle from the Steelers, or from Michigan. The Steelers took Derek Harmon, a defensive tackle. So Shedeur Sanders still on the board at 22, as are all the quarterbacks not named Cam Ward.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting here as you get later and later in this first round. You know, where was their grade on? I'm assuming they didn't think Sanders was going to be around. Where were they on Sanders? Where were they on Dart? Where were they on Milroe? Now Milroe has a higher upside, as Tim Beelick was saying, but Sanders is the guy for this scheme, in my opinion. And if it gets to like pick 27, 28, do they go back in and get him because they have, like you said, the fifth-year option? So I wasn't huge on it because I still think they need Burden, they need some guys. But if you're saying we can go back in, they still have the 36th pick.
Yep.
I don't know. It might be worth going back and get Sanders if they had a high grade on him.
Well, and again, 24, I believe, is the Vikings. You've got Quincy Adelpho, so there's a relationship there. They certainly have a relationship with the Eagles, who have the 32nd pick. Andrew Berry has done a number of things with them. So those are two spots to keep an eye out for. The Giants probably going to potentially do the same thing and try to trade back in. But the thing is if you're in the 20s, if you're going from 33 to the 20s, it might be that late fourth-round pick. Mm-hmm. The question is, how much do you like said quarterback?
When you watch the Browns offense over and over, especially as you get into offseason, you can just kind of go through and just watch offense over a course of 6-7 games. Sanders' anticipation and accuracy really fit this scheme of Stefanski in terms of I'm going to go 1, 2 to 3, check it down, get rid of the ball. And that's what he does really well. He works best from the pocket. His toughness, like I said, he took a beating, kept getting up. His footwork never ever got out of whack because he was getting hit. I don't know. I think Sanders being around this late, it might be worth going back in, really, like you said, giving up a fourth, going back in. And now you have a guy that I think can be the future because of the skill set.
The only thing that I question with Sanders, and again, I think all the garbage that you hear with body language and he seems entitled, I don't buy any of that. The question that I do have, though, is, to me, and Browns fans aren't going to like this, Shedeur Sanders is a lot like Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
So if Baker Mayfield wasn't good enough for you and you moved off of him, is Shedeur Sanders good enough for you?
That's an interesting. I couldn't agree with you more because Baker Mayfield, what his skill set is, fits Stefanski's perfectly, and that's something that would need to be asked, in my opinion, because you're absolutely right. Now his ability, he's a little bit taller, maybe, but in terms of throwing from the pocket, anticipating throws, Baker did that at high level too, and you see it now with Baker with the Bucs. I was high on Baker. I was high when they made the trade for Watson. The things they've done, but Is it because they didn't think Baker could get him to the next level? Because he fits this scheme.
Right.
And you're right. And Sanders is very similar in terms of throwing from the pocket and being within structure.
And the flip side of it makes you had Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen in that draft, and you took Baker Mayfield #1 overall.
Which
there are elite traits. Josh Allen was big and he could throw the ball over a mountain. Lamar Jackson runs like Jalen Milroe. Baker Mayfield didn't have elite traits. I mean, he was pretty good. He was competitive. He was feisty. A lot of the things you're saying about Shedeur Sanders, you were saying about Baker Mayfield, who you took #1 overall.
That's, you know what, and Baker Mayfield to me is one of those guys that goes past the measurables because I loved him at Oklahoma in terms of a competitiveness. He was a football player, and he was the best, I thought the best football player in the draft that year. Not the best potential player, but just a football player. But Josh Allen was outstanding. And Lamar Jackson, I was not as high on Lamar Jackson.
Right.
I didn't think he...
Nobody was.
I thought he was going to be good, but I didn't think he would be,
right.
Hall of Fame type good.
You know who was high on him? Ozzie Newsome. And he was right.
And he was right. And they passed on him once, though.
Right. So they took Hayden Hurst.
So it goes to like that quarterback position. You got to kind of find the guy, right? The Bo Nix that that finds the right spot, and there's a lot that goes into that.
All right. So we're at pick 22 right now. So let's again the draft started without a surprise as the Titans took Cam Ward, the quarterback from Miami, #1 overall, and then #2, a little bit of a surprise, is the Browns trade out, and they trade with the Jaguars. They get a first-round pick next year, a second-round pick this year, some pick swaps. And the Jaguars draft Travis Hunter. Giants go Abdul Carter. Patriots go Will Campbell, as expected. And the Browns go Mason Graham. Ashton Genty goes to the Raiders. Then you've got Membu going to the Jets. A little bit of a surprise as Tech McMillan goes to the Panthers. At 9, Banks, offensive lineman, goes to the Saints. The Bears, a little bit of a surprise. Colston Loveland, most thought it was going to be a different tight end. Mikael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, goes to the Niners. Cowboys go offensive lineman Tyler Booker from Alabama. Kenneth Grant, that's Mason Graham's inside defensive tackle mate. He goes to the Dolphins. So the defensive tackles go in the top 13. For Michigan. Tyler Warren slides down to 14. Falcons go with the linebacker Jalen Walker. Walter Nolan, D-tackle from Ole Miss, goes to the Cardinals. Shedeur Sanders, Shamar Stewart. Shedeur Sanders hasn't been taken yet. Stewart goes to the Bengals. Zabel, who I know you like, goes to the Seahawks. And then the Buccaneers take Emeka Egbuka, so another wide receiver weapon for Baker Mayfield. Barron, the cornerback, goes to Texas, and Harmon, not Shedeur Sanders, goes to the Steelers at 21. So you're sitting at 22, only one quarterback taken, and this is what most people were expecting relative to the quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I did think Sanders would go a little bit higher. I thought Pittsburgh, because Tomlin's he likes football players more than the numbers. I think over the years, the Steelers draft, the Ravens draft, they draft guys who fit their scheme, who fit their mentality. And the one thing you can say, I think about Shedeur Sanders, he's very tough and he's a really good football player. So I thought he might be gone there. They went defensive line, which it makes sense because you win up front. But it's really going to be interesting here as you push here towards the end of the first round. They're all there, and the guys. And I'm going to put, like I said, I'm going to put Tyler Shuck in there too because obviously he's older, but there's another guy who can make all the NFL throws. So is it you want production, scheme, upside? They're going to have their choice here, or do they stick and Luther Burden's still there, and you say, you know what, we're comfortable with our quarterbacks. We're getting a playmaker, and I think the best playmaker left in the draft in terms of getting the ball and doing things on your own is Luther Burden.
Yeah, Egbuka again going in the first round to the Buccaneers. So the other thing is there's still really good running backs there. Hampton from North Carolina was expected to be a first-round pick. There were some that thought Travion Henderson could go late first round. So those will be guys to pay attention to coming up.
Well, I had Henderson as my number one guy just because of his explosiveness. Love Hampton. Hampton kind of falls into that Genty, very contact balance is elite. You worry about him just because he's so physical. How long can you last? We talk about that all the time. But like Damian Wolf said, there's Damian Martinez. There's guys, I think you can get guys on day 3, late day 3, that will be just as successful as the day 2 backs, that really deep backs, really deep draft.
And as we talk about it, the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, head coach, takes Hampton at 22. So one of those running backs coming off, and this guy, again, is elite. He's seen some highlights of Amari Hampton.
Well, he's great downhill. He's got great contact balance. He's pretty good in pass protection. Obviously, thing he'll learn as he gets to the NFL. But once again, really, this is a Jim Harbaugh pick because this is a guy. Your comp is kind of like an early Nick Chubb before he was an all-star, right? He's thick. He gets to top speed very, very quickly. He has home run speed, but what he's always doing is always leaning forward. Him and Damian Martinez out of Miami are the two guys that just lean forward at all times. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense, especially with the running scheme. Very, Chargers want to run the ball physically, like the Browns want to run the ball physically. So this makes total sense.
Yeah, and they didn't re-sign J.K. Dobbins. That's a guy that something could be on the Browns' radar as a late free agent, along with Nick Chubb. So this is their bell cow back, and you can be sure he'll get the ball a lot with Jim Harbaugh calling plays.
Well, and the thing that worries you with all these style of backs, so Hampton, you can see this breakaway speed here, is that these guys who thrive on contact balance and thrive on violence, they have trouble staying healthy, and they have trouble having extended careers, not because they're not good, just because of the style they have. So how long are you going to have Hampton at a high level because of the style he has? I'm sure that has to tie into some of these guys' decisions as well.
It was interesting. We're listening to Daniel Jeremiah during the week, and his point on running backs along those lines was he didn't want to drop a running back into an offense until they were ready to win. For that very reason, he wants every carry on that tread to be when you are ready to compete and win.
Well, yeah, and if you look at Genty had 800 touches last year, right? I mean, 800 touches in his career. That's a lot of touches, and if you see him against the game that I remember that is the Penn State game, how hard he ran and how good he was, but that's really hard on your body. Now, he's physical specimen. He was bigger than everybody in Mountain West. It's just the contact. He'll still be successful in the NFL, but for how long with that style?
Yeah, without question. So Browns Hall of Fame offensive lineman Joe Thomas was taken number 3 overall. Here's his reaction to the pick of Mason Graham at 5.
What's up, Browns fans? Joe Thomas here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, site of the 2025 NFL Draft. And the Browns have just selected Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan, to pair him with the wrecking ball, Myles Garrett. I'm pretty excited because I don't know if you guys watched the Super Bowl this year, but that Philadelphia defensive line won the game, destroyed Patrick Mahomes. You put that Mason Graham dude next to Myles Garrett for about another 5 to 10 years. We got a lot of joy coming. Pure joy, as the great Z would say, because I cannot wait to see those guys in opponents' backfield all day long. And then tomorrow, you know what else I can't wait? I can't wait to announce the first pick of the second round for the Cleveland Browns. Right there behind me on that stage here in Lambeau Field. So stay tuned, clevelandbrowns.com, for all of your NFL draft updates. Go Browns. Oh, yeah.
Tell you, Joe Thomas is looking like a wide receiver instead of an offensive tackle these days.
I know, he's so fit. He looks incredible.
Yeah. Again, it's not a sexy pick, but you got one of the top 3 or 4 football players in this draft.
Well, the way I look at it is the Browns' offensive line went under a lot of criticism last year because they struggled, and they struggled a lot with the scheme. So that side of the ball is going to get better. That side of the ball, Teller, Bitonio, Posick, those guys are all going to get better because they're going back to what they do well. So they'll be improved. The defensive line, the front 7 as a whole, So they're going to be really, really solid. They're going to be outstanding defensively. An offensive line, depending on, I think DeJuan Jones, if he can get himself in shape and stay healthy, has a legit chance to be a really, really good left tackle in the NFL. But they've gotten better, and they're competitive up front with everybody who is the elite. And that's where now the Eagles had Saquon. There's guys that have to get with that, right? And that's where they're lacking, and that's where they need to get is those guys who, when they get the football, Saquon Barkley had a lot of times where he wasn't getting touched, and then he was able to do what he does. So I still think, and this might be naive, but I still think Nick Chubb can be productive in this offense to help that young quarterback.
Yeah, and young quarterback, be it Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, whomever, you've got to start making it easier on that guy, whether it's a rookie or one of those guys. Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, said rookie, they're going to be average to slightly above average NFL quarterback at best at this point in any one of their careers. You better go get some guys that can help them.
Well, yeah, so what they have to do, like Joe Flacco had 8 interceptions, 2 in the playoffs when he was here, right? But they played great defense that year. They were incredible, that year. So what he has to do is he has to protect the football if he's a starting quarterback. If he can protect the football, he's a quarterback you can win with. Now, none of the guys they have or guys they're going to draft are guys that you win because of. But those guys are few and far between. There's not a lot of guys in the NFL you win because of. And you saw even a guy you win because of, Patrick Mahomes, if you can get pressure, especially A and B gap pressure, which Mason Graham is going to create, that can make it very tough on even those elite guys, those very few elite guys.
Yeah, and again, the question is at what point in time I'm starting to think they may sit tight at 33.
And if they sit tight at 33, then I think you gotta think it's Luther Burden. And they might go in a totally different route. There's some really good tight ends out there. There's some really good safeties. There's a couple really good backers like Jeffrey Bassa, Jahad Campbell out of Alabama, some good linebackers. If JOK, we don't know about his health right now, even though people are saying he's okay. That would be another route you got to go. Do I want a top-end linebacker to solidify that front seven? But I'm with you on this one. They have to, if they're going to make the quarterback competitive, then they got to go out and get a guy. And that might be Henderson. I would say Henderson and Ibuka would be the 2 top choices in terms of guys who are explosive.
All right. And so, Burden is one. Henderson is one. You need an elite. You need a running back who can be your bell cow back. And you need somebody to pair with Jerry Jeudy.
Well, you're hoping Tillman makes the jump. I thought he did a really good job before he got hurt, but he still have to prove that. Now, he's a big, huge body, gives you a red zone target. Jerry Jeudy obviously proved himself. So they need a touch guy, right? And that touch guy, wherever that, instead of making it a position, make it a touch guy. And that's what I thought maybe they would do with Hunter. Just make him a touch guy. Start him on defense, make him a touch guy, or whatever it may, go the opposite way where he's starts on defense or starts on offense, and then he's just in man on defense. So they need to find a guy who can get them yards without doing anything right, and they don't have that guy, and that's why they struggle on offense, because the fact that they have to go 10, 12 plays every time.
So running back-wise, say they do that. Is Henderson, is he your top guy?
Well, he's my top guy. It's interesting. He's my top running back because I think he can run. I think he's a 3-down back. He's outstanding. He's nasty in pass protection. That would be earlier, right? So at 33, I love Henderson. Yes, he was my number 1 back. If they go late, day 3, then I think Damian Martinez fits that bill of getting them to 2nd 5. He's not a huge home run hitter, but he is a guy who leans forward. He's the kind of the back, kind of like he's a Hampton Light, right? He's not a guy who's going to break it, though, but he will always get you to 2nd 5. He's a heavy runner.
So the Green Bay Packers, the home team, getting ready to make their pick. Still, just one quarterback off the board. It doesn't seem like there's going to be more than 2 in the first round at this point in time. I suppose the Saints could potentially trade in, the Giants could trade in, and the Browns. I don't see all 3 of them trying to trade back in.
You know, when it comes down to, right, you don't need 32 teams. You need one, right? You need one general manager who likes you, and there's a guy out there, you know, like you and I have talked about, the Milroe upside, the Jackson Dart arm strength, his moxie, right? The Shedeur Sanders accuracy anticipation, the production and skill set of Tyler Shuck. One guy out there likes him, and wherever that is, we're going to find out here soon. But those 4 guys one of those 4 guys will be a star in the NFL. That's the percentages tell you. So. Hopefully, if the Browns choose one of them, it's a guy. It's that guy.
The right one.
That's the right guy. It's that guy.
Well, they're due. The law of averages say that the Browns will hit on a quarterback eventually, because they haven't since '99, really.
Correct. Correct. And I think, and there goes a classic example of not having the pieces around, because I thought Tim Couch was outstanding, didn't have any pieces, and just got beat up.
Yeah. So the other thing that. And we showed this a little bit earlier. This is kind of why we continue to talk about the wide receivers. Here are the wide receivers that are currently on the Browns roster, and it's Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman. You've got Jamari Thrash, who really hasn't played much. Michael Woods, who's been hurt. David Bell hadn't done much. DeAndre Carter, more of a return guy. That's bottom 5. Relative to wide receiver groups in the NFL.
Yeah, so you got to have a big jump by Tillman. You got to have, and then you got to go out and you got to get a touch guy, and that's the Tyreek Hill guy, right? The guy who does everything. Tillman's going to have to make, even if Tillman makes a big jump and Jerry Jeudy, it stays the same. They still need 3 and 4 if you want to get in 10 personnel or 11 personnel. So obviously, I was very impressed with Michael Woods a couple years ago. I thought he came into camp really in good shape this year. Hopefully he can make another jump. The thing that I've noticed about being down at practice is that your ability to run in it sounds kind of simple, but your short area burst is so crucial when you're going against like a Denzel Ward. You have to be able to get off the line of scrimmage. You have to be able to separate. And if you don't have that speed or that savvy, it's hard. And that's like David Bell, outstanding college receiver. He struggled with the speed aspect in the NFL. In my opinion, he cannot separate from these elite corners.
So Matthew Golden has been selected by the Panthers. That means the Vikings, or by the Packers. That means the Vikings are on the clock. So this is one of the spots where the Browns could trade in. There is the relationship between Andrew Berry and the Vikings GM. Here's Kevin Stefanski talking about what he looks for in quarterbacks.
At every position, not just quarterback, you're looking for dominant traits. You're looking for things that they're really, really good at, because when you have that as coaches, you can play to those strengths. And then every player, every coach, every player has weaknesses or things that they're maybe not as good at or improving at. So you try to minimize those as best you can. But you certainly want to look at it from the positive lens and say, okay, what can this guy do really well and how can we use that?
And again, that screams Jalen Milroe at this point in time.
Well, it's funny because it kind of, for me, it screams Jalen Milroe, and then it also screams Shedeur Sanders with anticipation and accuracy, and then it screams Milroe because of his ability, his ceiling, and and Jackson Dart has a really high ceiling too, and Jackson Dart's great with play action, and Jackson Dart does a really nice job with throwing on the move and different launch points. So all these quarterbacks that are left, they have some weaknesses, but they also have some dominant traits, like Coach Stefanski was saying.
So Golden to the Packers, Vikings on the clock. And we will see. Interesting to note, one of the later mock drafts had the Browns trading with the Commanders to trade back into the first round. I think it's 29 where they pick. So it's still a couple more picks. And then the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders with that 29th pick. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, here's Golden's a guy that would have been good in terms of what you want. He's an electric guy, really did well in the combine. So there's another guy off the board in terms of playmaking for the Browns. But yeah, that would be the Commanders, the Browns, that would cost them very little.
Right.
That would cost them very little. Now you get the 5th-year option. Once again, though, for me, even more than Milroe, hearing Coach Stefanski talk, it's not only is it elite traits, but he's thinking elite traits within his system. That's all Shedeur Sanders. That's all Shedeur Sanders. He is the perfect system fit for what Kevin Stefanski wants to do offensively, if truly they're going back to what Kevin Stefanski runs.
All right, so let's take a look at the draft capital that the Browns have, and it'll be interesting to see. So this is what they have remaining. So they have picks 33, 36 in the second round, 67 and 94 in the third, 126 in the fourth. So they move back 20 picks, 166. Fifth round pick they acquired from the Texans today for a couple of sixth round picks and a seventh round pick, and then a sixth round pick, 192. If it only cost me the fourth or the fifth round pick, I would definitely be interested in getting that fifth year option. If I like one of those quarterbacks and I'm going to take him at 33 or 36, go back in, give up a fifth or the fourth, go back into the first and get that fifth year option potential.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple, right? So they trade back in, go with the quarterback you like. You have some picks there that really can improve this football team. If you think about 2 tight ends, a receiver, and a running back, and you can get high value guys at all 3 of those positions in the tomorrow. Yep. Right? So that might be a route go, or they can get their quarterback tonight and then still get 3 guys. You can get your quarterback tonight and then get a running back, you can get a tight end, and you can get a receiver tomorrow. So there's a couple different options, but there are a lot of really good football players, those quarterbacks included. Now you're getting to the point where these quarterbacks are kind of worth the value.
So there are reports that the Giants are, in fact, trading back into the first round with the Rams, which would be pick 26. Supposedly, Shedeur Sanders' meeting with the Giants, particularly Brian Daboll, didn't go well. And they are targeting Jackson Dart. So we'll see if that's accurate. That was what everybody was surmising, is that the Giants and the Browns were talking to teams in the bottom of the first round. The Giants and the Rams would be 26, so we'll see that. The Vikings do, in fact, make their pick, and they take Donovan Jackson from Ohio State.
Once again, not a real sexy pick, but really good offensive lineman. Great feet, did a great job when he was forced to go against high-level guys this year. He really shined. That offensive line for Ohio State as a whole really did a nice job, especially when they got in the playoffs. Their ability to pass protect for Will Howard and their ability to move people offensively, really, really impressive. Now he's a guy also can play guard, can play tackle. I would assume he can play center too if needed. So when you go to an NFL practice and they only have 7 linemen because it's a 53-man roster, these guys who are swing tackles, if they're not a starter, they got to be able to play multiple positions to have value, because there's only 7 or 8 of them out there practicing.
Well, actually, the Giants have traded with the Texans, so they are now on the clock. So we'll find out. Is it, in fact, Jackson Dart? That's what the speculation was. We'll see if that was truth or draft rumor. But the Giants, they've signed Jameis Winston. They've signed Russell Wilson. So they're probably looking at a developmental quarterback.
Well, and Jackson Dart fits that role, right? Because if you watch him, the one thing he, besides being hot and cold, his footwork within the pocket when he is forced to throw from the pocket multiple times in a row gets all out of whack. Those are coachable things, but he does have a big arm. He does have great feet. He can throw from multiple launch points. He might be a guy that's worth the risk because you're the quarterback coach that says, you know what, that guy's got all the tools. I can make that work, what we're doing. So I would say they like him much more than they like Shedeur Sanders.
So there is the trade. The Giants get the 25th pick. The Texans get 34, 99, and a third-round pick in 2026. So that's a fair amount to give up, to move up back into the first round.
Tells you whoever they thought is really, they have a really high grade on, and they think there's a ton of potential there.
Well, and the other thing is that if that's the cost, do you really want to do that if you're the Browns?
Correct.
Probably not.
No.
And the Giants are going to select Jackson Dart. So that's the pick will be Jackson Dart. So, again, interesting. And there's a lot of upside. There's a lot to like, but there are some concerns.
You can see right here, the first play, he threw the ball. That's a vertical pass. That's a one-read on that safety. Safety comes up. Then you're going to see his ability to move his feet. He has great footwork, great arm talent, right? So he's a guy who can make all the throws from all the angles. he just gets really hot and really cold. And I remember talking with Dan Labu, we talked about, like, he asked me what my first thought was. I don't remember breaking a quarterback who was as hot or as cold as Jackson Dart for a high-level guy, because he can make all the throws, once again, from the pocket. You know, a lot of times those quarterbacks who have elite arm strength, their feet get a little bit out of whack because they can rely on, if you look at, you know, Aaron Rodgers would be the perfect example of his feet aren't ever right, but his arm is so good, right, his arm talent. So they obviously, the Giants feel with his skill set and his upside that they can fix that pocket footwork. Once again, a guy who can make all the throws. I actually had Jackson Dart below Tyler Shuck. I think Tyler Shuck just has more production, but a lot to like about Jackson Dart.
So Dart goes 25 overall to the Giants, who trade in with the Texans to make that pick. They get their quarterback. That was clearly the guy they liked. So now it's still Milroe and Shedeur Sanders.
Two guys that have been linked. If they didn't take Sanders, they were going to take Milroe. And it's very interesting because it kind of, the only thing that I would say about Milroe is that he doesn't fit the scheme. And what worries me as a football coach is that we had a high-level guy. Deshaun Watson was a high-level guy that just seemed to not be able to fit, right? He was a square peg in a round hole. And some of it was him, some of it was scheme, some of it was injury. There's a lot of things that went into that, but it just didn't work. And that worries me because that's what Milroe would be right now. He would be a guy who's going to win with athleticism. And where Sanders probably, where it's, Tim Beelick said it best, Milroe's probably going to be really good or a bust, where Sanders might be a B+, but he's going to be a B+. And, do you roll the dice with an A or an F, or you do want the B+? And that's a hard one for, especially with, what is their grade and what did they think? They're going to find out quickly here with the Browns.
You want Browns fans to scream, say somebody reminds you of Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Well, you know what? But going back, I have taken a lot of grief with that. I will stand on a mountain alone. But when going back to Baker Mayfield played really well, got hurt. Deshaun Watson in 2020, it's some of the best film I've ever watched as a quarterback. And when they went out and got him, I thought it was a great thing. It didn't work out, obviously. Swing and a miss, as we've heard. But once again, what was the swing and a miss? Was it all Watson, or was that Watson couldn't fit in this scheme? We don't know the entire, they went out and got a new offense coordinator, didn't work. There's a bunch of things that went into it. That's what you get out of Milroe. Or do you say, you know what, his skills are too good, we got to take him. We'll fix what he doesn't do good, because everything that we can't teach, he can do.
Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I really wasn't a big Jalen Milroe fan, and everybody said, oh, Jalen Milroe this, Jalen Milroe that. And I just was like, I really don't understand the hype in his game. Then as I did the last 2 years, I looked at the numbers with him and Reese, and they're completely night and day from last year and then the year he was with Reese. He's very, very efficient with Reese versus the new regime that came in. And I would say the year in 2023 when they faced LSU, he outdueled Jaden Daniels. And he's a physical runner. I understand, this is the NFL. But I feel like our offense is a running football team. But if we can evolve to what we're good at, which is what Reese is also good at, creating a running scheme with a quarterback, I believe that our offense can finally take the right evolution instead of becoming a pass-heavy football team. And if Reese can help Kevin, get this running scheme going back, and not just with the running back, but with the quarterback, I think that, the sky's the limit for Jalen.
It's interesting. I will say this. The Browns know more about Jalen Milroe than any team in the NFL, and I've said that, and people are probably sick of hearing me say that. Tommy Reese was his offensive coordinator for an entire season. He was pretty good with Tommy Reese. Saban was their head coach. So there's some elite-level coaching. Whatever they did with Tyler Bohr, it didn't work quite as well with Jalen Milroe. Now, is it Milroe's fault? Is it the coach? Who knows? I'm intrigued, and I think if you're going to swing, you swing for upside. There's plenty of upside. But to your point, can he play on time? Can he play from the pocket? Those are all things that he's got to work on.
Yeah, and it's a very hard decision, right? And the thing people have thrown that in my face too. Lance, you've always said, it's not plays, it's players. And Jalen Milroe physically is hard to get past his physical traits. They are elite. Can they carry over? The quarterback position is so unique, and it's such a position that everybody misses on so much because of the it factor. You don't know his work ethic. We don't know any of that. Like you said, though, Tommy Rees would. Tommy Rees knows his practice habits. So if they go with Milroe, it not only tells you they like his upside, but they like all the little things that are important. Is he on time for meetings? Does he show up for everything? Does he handle himself? Does he carry himself? Does he take care of his body? Does he go out at night? All those things Tommy Rees knows. So if they go with Milroe, it tells you that not only do they think his upside is very good, but they know what type of person he is.
So the Rams have traded their pick, and it's to the Falcons, though. So don't think they're going quarterback because they have Michael Penix, unless they find somebody to take Kirk Cousins and his contract off their hands.
Yes.
But it'll be interesting to see. So back-to-back picks into the bottom of the first round, one for a quarterback. We'll see. Do the Falcons? Heck, they don't need a running back either. They have Bijan Robinson. So it's probably for a defensive guy.
The Falcons they're a pretty good football team. They have there's not a lot of glaring holes, right? They have some improvements they got to make. They got to get some depth at certain positions. But this is if Michael Penix can play at the level they think he can, this is a football team that's kind of ascending because there's not glaring holes. So I'm with you. I think they with Pitts and everybody they got to go defense. Maybe Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. He's the top linebacker in the draft. Really, really good. But there's Jeffrey Bassa's a good linebacker. Malachi Starks is still there, the safety, my top safety on the board. So there's a lot of really good defenders left, high-level guys that are left if they decide to go defense.
So the Falcons get pick 26 and a third-round pick. The Rams get 46. They get a first-round pick.
Wow.
In 2026 and a seventh-round pick this season. So there's somebody the Falcons want awfully bad because they're trading next year's number one to move up. Now they were deeper. I think it was 41, so they were deeper in the second round. So it'll be interesting to see who the Falcons end up drafting.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They had a guy they want, and you can see their excitement. They had a guy that they thought was going to be gone, and they were doing everything they could. You always wonder, I have for years, is, what is the time element that happens, that all this happens, right? And do you make rash decisions because a guy you had really high is still available a lot later than you thought? It seems like you get a lot of these kind of rash decisions when that happens.
Yep, so the Falcons have traded in, and again, there was some thought that the mock draft had the Browns trading with the Commanders. The other one you'd have to keep an ear out for would be the Eagles. But if you're doing the Eagles are 32, Browns would be 33. The only reason the Browns do that is if you want that fifth-year option. That's the only benefit. And it's what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
I mean, they weren't 33, but they were high enough up in the second round.
Yeah, the fifth-year option's huge, especially for a quarterback as well.
Yeah, it's cost certainty at a position where
the need is elite.
So we are waiting the pick for the Falcons after the trade, and James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee, so it is defense.
I wasn't. For me, James Pierce is a boomer bust, right? I don't really like his bend, and the thing that has really, I try to be a lifelong learner, especially in the game of football. Those defensive ends in the NFL, they have to be strong. They have to have a repertoire. But if you watch Myles Garrett wins with bend. He doesn't have a huge repertoire, and he wins with speed and bend. And Pierce is not a huge bend guy. Now, he's a great athlete, great vertical. Once again, for me, the numbers, the physical measurements don't match the potential just yet. Now, there's guys who have got to the NFL and they get with the D. There's the D-line coach at the Falcons, obviously for what they traded for, said this guy was one of the top guys on my board, or probably two after Carter. So
now the Ravens are on the clock. It'll be interesting again to see. We've had a couple of trades into the bottom half of the first round. There was reports earlier that both the Browns and the Giants were trying to. The Giants already made their move. I think, the Falcons weren't sure Pierce was going to be there. There were some that had him going in the middle of the first round. So,
yeah, the guy, a guy that really fits, not necessarily need, but a guy who fits the Ravens mentality is a kid, Mike Green, out of Marshall. Led the country in sacks last year and kind of plays like a Raven in terms of physical and defensive-minded and tough and vocal. But there's, once again, do they need a linebacker? Do they need a free safety? There's some good guys out there at those positions.
So Ravens picking 26th or 27th, and then you've got Commanders coming up 29th, Chiefs 31, Eagles 32. So those are, again, spots the Browns could be trying to get back to. Again, remains to be seen. The fifth-year option puts that in play. It really comes down to how much do you value that if you're Andrew Berry.
Well, and the signing of the two quarterbacks, when you got Pickett and then you go out and get Flacco again, is quarterback even on their roster for this 33rd, did they say we're going Luther Burden, we're going Henderson? They might have a guy that they like and they're sticking with it because they traded out of two, and maybe they're thinking we're going to get weapons for Flacco, we're going to get a running back, we're going to get four good offensive players on day two. And you're going to get really high-level guys on day two, especially for the Browns in that slot, tight end, running back. They could have a really good day two if they decide not to move back in.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will be back with more on Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special for Round 1. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation. I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in. I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, you know, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Welcome back to Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special, Round 1. In the tail end of things, let's take a look at who has been picked and where we are at. It started, no surprise, Cam Ward, selected by the Titans, #1 overall. Then the Browns trade with the Jaguars, #2. Travis Hunter goes to the Jaguars. 3 is Abdul Carter, Will Campbell 4. The Browns, who get Jaguars a #1 pick next year and a 2 this year, take Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan, at 5. Genty, Membu, and McMillan go 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then it's Kelvin Banks Jr., Loveland, Mikel Williams, Booker, the guard from Alabama, goes to the Cowboys. Grant, the inside defensive tackle mate of Mason Graham, goes to the Dolphins. Tyler Warren, 14, to the Colts. Walker and Nolan go 15 and 16. At 17, the Bengals take Shamar Stewart, a young guy, an edge rusher from Texas A&M. Gray Zabel goes to the Seahawks. Ibuka goes to the Buccaneers, gives them another weapon at wide receiver. Barron, the cornerback, goes to the Broncos. Harmon to the Steelers, Hampton to the Chargers, and then Golden, the wide receiver, goes to the Packers. Donovan Jackson, the guard from Ohio State, goes to the Vikings. The Giants trade back into the first round to get Jackson Dart. Falcons trade into the first round to get James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee. And the Ravens has just selected Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. And Lance, we were talking, the Steelers and the Ravens always seem to draft well and to their style.
Well, yeah, you hear that all the time. This guy fits our culture. This guy's great in our building. But when you watch over the drafts, the Steelers, Malachi Starks is a great example. This is a football player first. Some of his measurables are good. They're not like super elite, but he's tough and he totally fits that Raven mentality. He actually would have been a great fit in Schwartz's scheme because he's a rangy guy, can play multiple different defenses, can play 2 high, 1 high, covers a lot of ground sideline to sideline. He's physical coming out of Georgia. Really, really good safety. I had him number 1 on my board, not like so most people did, just because of that range and that physicality, speed, really good football player, played in great, those guys come out of those big programs are well coached as well.
Well, you pair him up with Kyle Hamilton, and now you got some problems in the back half of that defense for the Ravens.
And when it tells you it's very similar, the Ravens are very similar to the Browns, right? Kyle Hamilton, if he has one weakness, it's his in coverage sometimes, right? So put him, it's just like Delpit, put him down on the line of scrimmage, because down at the line of scrimmage, he is absolutely destructive down there, right? Just like Delpit is. So Malachi will be more of the 1 high safety and really good at it.
So the Lions are on the clock now, and again, there was some talk that the Browns were trying to trade back into the back half of the first round. They don't want to give up a lot, so you would only be moving up a couple of spots. You wouldn't have to give up much, maybe a 4th or 5th round pick. They may decide, and this is 4th or 5th round in this draft is where some value is, so they may decide they want to hold on to that pick.
Well, especially if the quarterback is not what they want, the positions that they need are very, very deep. So they might be sitting pretty here saying, we're gonna address what everybody wants us to do offensively. We're gonna address that on day 2, and they can get really a lot better offensively on day 2 with those 4 picks. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they stay put and decide and pick and hopefully start with Luther Burden, because that would answer a lot of their issues with touches.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. So you know that the Lions are looking for somebody to pair with Aiden Hutchinson, kind of like the Browns have been looking. So your Mike Green guy would figure in. Campbell, the linebacker, is still there. That defense has been really good for the Lions.
Yeah, there's some good guys that would really fit there. When you talk about Mike Green, everybody talks about Abdul Carter. Mike Green is the same kind of guy. He is a disruptive guy off the edge. Be a really good match opposite of Aiden Hutchinson.
So they do go defensive line, but it's Tyleik Williams, tackle from Ohio State. So interior to fortify that aspect of their defensive line.
Well, Tyleik Williams is 6 foot, 6'3", 6'4", 330 pounds. Got to Ohio State at 360. I actually just, I was just writing an article on him, how I think he has a chance to be the best pro of this elite, 15, 16 guys that the Buckeyes are probably going to have drafted. His short area burst, quickness, he now, kind of like Mason Graham, kind of falls in that category that the Browns have now with the Lions, right? So he'll be inside, he'll be next to him, he'll be opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, but really elite pass rusher, great feet, runs well. This is a guy who, like I said, I think he's a guy who might be the best Buckeye as a pro, 3 years from now.
So the Washington Commanders, that was one of the spots where there was some thought the Browns might trade back into. They are now on the clock, so we'll see if that materializes, or does Washington stick and make their pick.
You can see the Browns, if Sanders slides, or Milroe slides, you can see the Browns staying put, getting the quarterback, the running back, the receiver, and a tight end, all high-level guys tomorrow on day 2. So if they don't trade back in, I think that's where you're going.
Yeah, and again, the only reason to trade back in would be that 5th-year option, and it might not have enough value. You might want that 4th-round pick or that 3rd-round pick, whatever it's going to cost you. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave. Frank from Cleveland. One thing, a caller called in about the playmakers. He's right. Tim Beelick comes back with Nick Chubb. John Dorsey drafted Nick Chubb. Who did this generation front office draft that's been any good? This front office that hasn't produced any playmakers on offense, and I know they went without some draft picks. That's by their choice. And they busted out on Jedrick Wills. He was a bust. Go on and on and on. All right, thanks for taking the call, Dave. Sorry about the dog that's barking in the background. I love you, brother. Be good, be safe, you and the family.
It fits. It's the fans barking.
That's right.
It's a fair criticism, but I would also say they haven't drafted enough. They haven't taken enough swings. They seem to draft, offensive skill positions 3rd round or later, and those don't hit very often. I mean, Anthony Schwartz was a disaster. Cedric Tillman showed some promise, but got to see more.
Well, yeah, and when you say swing and miss, that's what ends up happening when you take 3rd. When you go, like I'll use an example like Xavier Restrepo. He doesn't run very well, kind of reminds me of Cooper Kupp. but his ability not to run very well, he might not be very good. Or he comes in and he's savvy enough and he does it really well. But, when you're taking Travis Hunter is going to be a great player. And you know that because his skill set is better than everybody else's. And Tet McMillan, 6'5", he's going to be a good pro. He's going to be a good outside one guy. They took a shot on Seth Tillman, but he's still got to prove himself. And, and he had injuries, and that's probably why he slid. But they got to start thinking about taking these elite guys early. And now, this starting tomorrow, because of the depth at some of the positions they need, they can get a first or second round guy tomorrow. Second round, third round, and they can get a tight end that they need. They can get a real quality guy on day 3. So they got to be smart. They got to address this offensive, the deficiencies they have, which they have a lot on offense right now.
Yeah, again, you need an infusion of guys who threaten the defense with the ball. And you see the number, 330-963-7763. We have the ability to take phone calls, so you want to give us a call and react. We will also be here. Lance and I will be here tomorrow starting at 7 for rounds 2 and 3. A little bit quicker between picks. Rounds 2, it's 7 minutes between pick. Rounds 3, it's 5 minutes. But now the Browns have 4 picks in rounds 2 and 3 after trading back out of 2. So again, plenty of work to do. I would expect most of it to be on the offensive side of the ball, but you never know.
Well, you'd have to stay with the pick of Mason Graham, where the Browns were at 3-14 last year, some of the success and failures they have. You'd have to say not taking an offensive weapon, not taking Travis Hunter second. Tomorrow's second and third rounds are probably the most important draft day of Barry's tenure, right? Yeah. He's got to really hit on some offensive skill guys that can get some yards after catch tomorrow, early and often at multiple positions.
Yeah, and it looks like the Commanders are staying and picking, so we'll see who that pick is for the Commanders at 29. So we will we'll continue to monitor that. So you got still a couple more picks. Eagles are always a potential trade partner with Andrew Berry. We've seen that in the past. The question is, do the Browns want to move up one spot or not? Is it worth it?
Yeah, and obviously if they don't think that quarterback, if they don't have a guy that they graded very high, then probably not. They're probably going to stick with their, they're saying next year's quarterback class. That doesn't always come to fruition either. But next year's quarterback has some guys who fit the bill again, kind of like Shedeur Sanders does. Pocket guys, Garrett Nussmeier, for example, Manning. Those guys are high-level guys, but you never know with quarterbacks, right? No one ever does. So if they're high on a guy, go get him. If not, stay put, bridge the gap with your 2 older guys. But regardless who it is, you got to have some talent for that guy.
Right.
You got to score more than 15 points. As great as that defense could be, and it could be really good, you still got to score some points.
The other thing is we keep talking about the need for a young quarterback. They may view Kenny Pickett as their younger quarterback. And Kevin Stefanski said it's an open competition. So that's really the first time that under Kevin Stefanski that they're going to operate with that, because it was Baker Mayfield, then it was Deshaun Watson. So I'm curious to see how he divvies that up and how much of an open competition, what it looks like, because Watson didn't play much in preseason. Heck, Baker didn't play much in preseason.
Well, you went into last year, there was not a lot of competition at all.
Right.
Everybody kind of knew their position, which I think kind of hurt them. That's what got them off to a slow start, in my opinion, is that everybody kind of knew who they were, and when they really started doing live bullets and getting after it, it was game 1. And then they fell behind, and it just was too much. So they're going to have to adjust how they practice and how they do things, because it hasn't worked, both in injuries and production.
And so the Commanders take an offensive tackle, Josh Connerly from Oregon. It's a guy that Damon Wolf was saying would make sense for the Browns top of the second round. He won't be there.
Really, really talented guy. Again, guy with great feet, plays in a system where he was on an island a bunch. You'll see him here, really physical in the run game. Will have to work on his sets a little bit, but he's athletic, and you can see how athletic he is. Does a great job on the twist there. Once again, Dan Lanning does a great job at Oregon. Really does a lot of different things. Moves his feet well in a small space. Really good with his hands. Has a good punch. Works individually with his hands very well. Going to be a really good pro. You see his feet there getting inside zone. That's really hard to do, reach inside like that. Good athlete. Kind of, to be honest with you, shocked if you need an offensive lineman, shocked that he wasn't taken earlier.
Kind of interesting. So now you go Bills, Chiefs, Eagles. and then it's the end of the first round. The other thing that always happens after the first round, you always look at that and like, there's always a guy that you go, how the heck did he make it? So the Browns hold that pick, and that's usually something somebody tries to trade up and get. But I think there might be a revolt if you trade out of the first pick in the second round after you traded back.
Well, at some point in time, you got to go out. The draft capital is fantastic, but football at all levels, but especially the NFL, you got to win.
Right.
If you want to see what fixes all your issues in the building and your culture and everything,
winning.
Win.
Yeah.
Teams who win have great culture. Teams who win are well coached. You got to win, and that's you get and players win, not coaches. Players win, and you got to go out and get those players. Because in the NFL, those guys can all coach. So you got to have some good guys.
Yeah, the funniest thing I had, the NFLPA players thing where the Browns ranked low, I was like, they were 3-14. If they didn't rank low, I'd be like, what are you guys doing? The food doesn't taste good. The weight room's terrible. Everything's bad.
Everything is bad, right? When they say winning solves everything, that is absolutely true in football. Now, there's some things you can work on, but it's now just like things we got to work on, not a problem, right? If you're winning, everything is easy.
So again, the question becomes, do the Browns trade back in? And obviously, the further you go, the less likely it is.
Well, if I'm the Browns right now, I'm worried about Luther Burden going here to the Bills. Because they're going to
need some receiving help.
They need some guys for Josh Allen, and right now Luther Burden to me is had a high first round grade for me. So I'd be if I'm the Browns and Luther Burden was on your radar, you're gritting your teeth right now.
Yeah, and they tried Diggs, that didn't work. They tried Cooper, that really didn't work.
Yeah,
They've kind of cobbled together a supporting cast for Josh Allen.
Well, it kind of tells you, too, if you're an elite quarterback, how you can make the people around you better, right? So
here's a look at the best available wide receivers. So Higgins is an intriguing guy.
Yeah.
And then you also have his teammate, Jalen Noel.
I learned a lot about Higgins. Dan Lobby, Cleveland. He's a huge Higgins fan. He's kind of sold me. Tim is huge on Trey Harris. I'm big on Luther Burden. Noel, really. Jack Beck's an interesting guy, longer guy.
Yeah.
He could be a guy that could be almost like a flex tight end in Stefanski's scheme. Bigger guy, great hands, great red zone guy. That would be huge for the Browns as well. They need some more red zone guys as well.
And again, we've showed the wide receiving room. It needs upgrading. I wouldn't mind two, and I'd say the same thing about running backs. I wouldn't mind two, especially with a deep class. Give me one early, give me one late.
Well, you can get, especially running back, you can get a home run hitter.
Yeah.
And then you can get a guy who can get you 4 yards, and you need both in the NFL.
And here are the running backs, and remember, there's only 3 picks. There's the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. Those are the picks in the first round. And I wouldn't expect the Eagles to take one because of Saquon. But you never know with the Chiefs. They find a way of, we can do that and plug this guy in and make our offense even better.
Well, if you're looking at that thing, as much as I love the Ohio State backs, in terms of what Stefanski does, offense, Caleb Johnson is an absolute. If he's around at 36, there's your. You go get Burden. If they were to get Burden at 33 and Caleb Johnson at 36, now you're starting to close the gap a little bit.
So again, the Bills getting ready to make their selection in the first round. So it will go Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, and that will be the end of this first round. Browns trade back from 2 to 5. They pick up a number 1 next year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's a team to root against already, Browns fans.
Very interesting what the thought process was going off Hunter. There's something you'd like to know, because there's very few guys you watch the film and you're just kind of awed by their not just their physical skill set. He's a guy, when you watch him on film, his skill set is just incredible.
The comment that I made is you never hear Andrew Berry be so effusive in praise with somebody like he was with Hunter. Well, he was trying to sell somebody to trade up and get it, and congratulations to Andrew Berry, did a sales job. So the Bills take Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston, fastest guy in the draft.
Yeah, no, he's outstanding, and you just said it. He's long, he's fast. He's actually really good man coverage. He's a...
Josh Allen is going, would you get me a wide receiver,
It goes
please?
back to like Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady for all those years. Could you get me a guy who can catch the ball? But yeah, this is a guy who very productive, but also the combine, the pro days, this helped this guy a ton. He ran really, really well, obviously, but his short area burst, his ability to play zone, man, really good in press coverage, really, really, really good player. And once again, if you're not taking receivers, they're not always the sexiest pick, but this guy will be the starting corner for the Bills for a long time.
You know, the other thing that occurs to me, there's some talk that some veterans could be moved. Greg Newsome, Obo Okunrankwo, that might be lessened a little bit because you didn't get an edge rusher. Do you think either of those guys get traded? Andrew Berry, when asked about it, just said, I wouldn't rule anything out that will improve our football team.
Well, I agree with you. I say no. I think Obo has just got to, once again, get into his role, third down guy, pass rush specialist. I think maybe he has done too much in terms of dropping. So just put him, if he can focus just on rushing the passer. And then Newsome, I think he's a guy, I like him. I think he's good in the slot. I think he can help these guys. And I also think he brings an edge that a lot of those guys don't have. He gets irritating at times for some, right? Yeah. I've had people say, I don't like, well, you need those guys too. You need those guys who, you go out to practice. What I like most about Greg Newsome is he really likes to practice. And when you're out there, you can see that in him. And that's contagious as well. So I think their secondary, you don't get rid of a really good secondary. I wouldn't anyway, get rid of pieces of a really good secondary unless they have plans on bringing someone else in.
So the Chiefs and the Eagles have swapped picks. So that's interesting.
Well, there's somebody out there that they either, defender, like you said, you just went over those running backs. Is it Travion Henderson? Henderson with the Chiefs is scary because of what he can do.
The Eagles moved up. So the Eagles moved up ahead of the Chiefs. So for a 5th-round pick. So it would cost a 5th-round pick to move up a spot. Is the going rate? It's interesting.
Eagles don't have many holes, that's for sure.
No. So there's somebody that they like.
Yeah. Is it Jahad Campbell? I mean, I know they're loaded at linebacker, but he fits that mold. He can run.
Is it a quarterback? Is it one of the quarterbacks? Because they now DTR is their backup quarterback. Does Howie Roseman go and try to get Shedeur Sanders?
Well, or does he, because of the skill set, does he go with Jay Milroe? Because now he's a running guy and he can do, and that means you don't have to change your practice plans at all. So that's a very interesting thought as well.
Yeah, and the comp for Jalen Milroe is Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
So that would be such a Eagles thing to do, because you traded away Kenny Pickett. You got a 5th-round pick and DTR. So you do need a developmental guy. Now you can probably do it later, but
and a developmental guy that you don't have to do different stuff for.
Right.
You don't have to work pocket stuff. You don't have to work play action. You can work everything that you're doing. He's just going to learn from Hurts. That's an interesting thought. Would not shock me at all. You can see them going O-line, even though they're loaded there. You can see him go O-line, D-line. How he loves going O-line,
D-line. The
playbook
is open for him because they don't have a lot of needs. Yeah, now they do tight end, so
Mason Taylor, possibility there.
Yeah.
Harold Fannin will be a guy because he's flexible. Once again, playmaker.
The thought is it's going to be the linebacker you were talking about, Jahad Campbell. So we'll see. It's not official yet, but.
Well, Jahad Campbell checks all the boxes, right? So he can play on the line of scrimmage. He can play off the ball. He can play Mike. He can play Will. He can do a lot of different things. That makes a lot of sense to me. Comes from Alabama, which tells you he can play. Recruited by Saban, so he understands the game of football, which is important.
Yeah, so the Eagles getting ready to make the second to last pick in the first round, and the Chiefs will wrap up the first round. So it's kind of interesting. As it stands now, unless a surprise. Just 2 quarterbacks taken, only Cam Ward and Jackson Dart.
Very interesting too, because it tells you like what was the slide from Shedeur Sanders? What was everybody's slide, and was it interviews? Was it what was it? Because what I watch on film is, in terms of what NFL guys see, the accuracy and the anticipation is really, really good. So something happened where like you said, it happens every year. There's somebody that
right.
But yeah, there's a lot of really good. I mean, Browns stay at 33. They can tomorrow in rounds 2 and 3 they can get their quarterback, a receiver who can make plays with the ball, a running back, a choice of running backs, and a choice of tight ends.
Yep. So here it goes: Browns, Texans, Titans, and Browns, and then the Raiders. Titans aren't taking another quarterback. You can be sure of that. Texans probably aren't either. They still have Davis Mills and
CJ.
CJ. So you could always, if you're worried about Luther Burden or one of those running backs going, you take them with the first pick in the second round. You come back in 36 and get your quarterback, unless you feel comfortable with Milroe or somebody even later.
Well, I tell you what, if Burden's not, once again everybody has their plans, but if Burden's not taken here, and he's not the first pick of the Browns tomorrow, that would be disappointing, because he is everything they need in terms of playmaking. He can play multiple positions, slot, inside, outside, but he's a guy you don't have to do anything for. Just throw it to him, and he can make plays for you. And that's what they desperately need. So
sounds like that's going to be the Chiefs' pick then. So
correct.
So it is Jahad Campbell to the Eagles. They have confirmed that pick.
Makes a ton of sense. Really, really multiple. A big linebacker, 6'3". About 235 pounds, runs really well, played the Mike, played the Sam, played the Will. They also put him at the defensive end and nickel. So he's a guy that can give you 3 downs. Makes a lot of sense. They draft another team that drafts really well. And kind of, if there's one spot they weren't maybe super deep at, it was that linebacker, edge kind of guy. Now they got a guy who can kind of do both. So, again, really, really smart by the Eagles.
So wrapping up the first round, want to remind you, 330-963-7763. If you want to give us a call, we will be back here tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3, starting an hour earlier, starting at 7, less time between picks, 7 minutes between second round picks, 5 minutes between third round picks. So it will move along about the same pace probably as the first round. Most teams use the full 10 minutes and are probably encouraged to do so.
Yeah.
As the draft goes on, they're not encouraged to do so.
Yeah, and you get a lot of looking at those boards, which is pretty cool. Now they're just taking guys who best available, and still, what they need, best available. You're right. It goes. Sometimes you can't keep up with it after round 1.
So awaiting the pick from the Chiefs to wrap up the first round, and again, the draft was just a 5th round pick. So Kansas City gets a 5th round pick to allow the Eagles to hop over them and take the 31st pick, and Chiefs will pick 32nd overall. We're going to step aside and take a quick timeout. We will wrap up round 1 of Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special after this timeout.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in. I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special, Round 1 wrapping up, awaiting the announcement of the pick by the Kansas City Chiefs, who traded back to 32 with Philadelphia Eagles. The Chiefs are another one, could pretty much go anywhere. Pacheco was banged up, so running back could make some sense. They ended up bringing back Kareem Hunt, who played really well for him in Pacheco's absence. A guy that catches the ball like Henderson we were talking about.
Caleb Johnson run the ball really well downhill. You got Mike Green if they want to improve that defense a little bit. Yeah, and there's some guy there. They have there's a plethora of guys out there that are really, really good right now.
They've struggled to get a consistent wide receiver as well. They did get Worthy, who was pretty good. Big play kind of guy.
Yeah, they need maybe a slot guy, almost like a dependable kind of guy against the zone, working or an outside. There's some receivers that would be really good. Higgins, you can see them taking. Yeah. He fits that mold, a vertical guy.
So, again, it'll be interesting. And, again, we want to remind you that Lance and I will be back here tomorrow starting at 7 when the second round gets underway. We'll have second and third round tomorrow. Then we'll come back Monday with a normal show. But so the Browns trade back from 2 to 5. They get a first-round pick next year. The number 1 pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars gives them 2 number 1s next year. They still have their own. They draft Mason Graham. They also accumulate another second-round pick early in the second round. So they have 2 of the first 5 picks in the second round. They have 2 third-round picks. And the need to upgrade their offense, and they can do that tomorrow.
Well, if you're a Browns fan and you're not much of a draft fan, tomorrow's the day you want to watch, right? Because tomorrow's the day that the Browns can really improve their team tomorrow, right? As bad as they were this year, they have too many good pieces to be like that again, and they have to fill some holes. But they got to be able to score points. And once again, I'm a huge believer in offensive, defensive line, and I don't think you're ever wrong drafting there. But at some point in time, you got to score some points. And there are a lot of players left in this draft after day 1 that can really help them.
Yeah, it kind of seemed to lean more defense. Literally two quarterbacks, 2 running backs is all I think. I think it was just Genty and Hampton that went, and just Ward and Jackson Dart.
Well, it's copycat league, as we always say, right? And everybody's trying to get that Eagles, right? So no matter how good the offense is, if you can just physically dominate with a defensive line, the receivers aren't going to be very good. Your quarterback's not going to be very good. You can't run the ball. So that's kind of the mentality, especially these defenses now that have a bunch of hybrid guys, these guys who play edge and linebacker, can move inside. I think that's very important. Kind of what the Eagles, they've kind of put the blueprint out there in terms of how to ruin an offense.
And the Chiefs are going to go offensive line. Josh Simmons from Ohio State.
Might be the highest ceiling tackle in the draft. Great feet. Not surprising there. Protect their franchise guy. One of the few quarterbacks in the league you win because of. So if that's offensive, he's not playing, they don't win. So he's got to be protected. So that's a solid pick for a team that's pretty solid.
Final thought on this one as we wrap it up, Lance.
I think the quarterback. Yeah, the quarterback was interesting. The only 2 backs in a really deep draft, so there's lots of really good backs, really good tight ends. There's some really good defenders left. There's some great safeties left. There's some great linebackers left. Browns need to really focus on that offense, skill players tomorrow. Whether it's a quarterback or not, there's got to be a skill guy. There's got to be a guy who can touch it and run with it.
All right, so here are the picks that the Browns have tomorrow. They have pick 33, pick 36 that was acquired from the Jaguars, pick 67, and pick 94. Rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. You see a 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick on day 3. That's going to do it for our draft night special here on Sports4CLE. For Lance Reisland, I'm Dave Bacon. Join us tomorrow at 7. We'll go through rounds 2 and 3 on Sports4CLE. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow for Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special for rounds 2 and 3.